Welcome back to the Rodcast, Monday Fun Day edition of the Rodcast. Well, unless you're a Cowboys fan or a Texans fan, which most of us are. But we'll get into that. Of course, we'll talk about the Longhorns. I tried to warn a lot of you guys about your expectations, mostly about the Cowboys and the Texans, but also about Arch Manning. We'll see what Steve Sarkisian had to say about his first impressions of his young quarterback, what you guys have to say about the sneak peek you got at the future of Texas football. We'll get into it and talk about the Longhorns' big win over ULM and looking ahead to the start of SEC play for the Longhorns. We'll get into it. We'll hear from the head coach. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment. Also, of course, we'll dissect what happened to the Dallas Cowboys and what happened to the Houston Texans. We'll get into that. Other NFL news, notes, and nuggets from around the league. We got your usual favorites. We got what the facts, what the stats. We got off the record. We got who said that. Your topic for the big fat poll of the day. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are loaded on a Monday Fun Day edition of the Rodcast. Before we hit any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor, ladies and gentlemen. It is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Back on a Monday morning. It was a really good Saturday. It's a really good Saturday. Sunday, not so much. Sunday, not so much.
Sunday was wild, man. If you're a Cowboys fan or a Texans fan, that was hard to stomach. So yeah, we'll get it. I don't know which one was ugly. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Cowboys I know which one was ugly.
Texans fan.
I know which one was ugly. Yeah, I know which one.
Yeah. The Texans one was ugly.
Yeah, because I mean the Cowboys, we knew they were gonna run, and then at least you had that fourth quarter where at least there was something of life. There was some life showing at the end. And so it's kind of so like you were like, okay, there's something there, and maybe they can start to figure some things out where the Texans, you're like, dude, this is not something that's necessarily fixable overnight. It's more a systemic problem that your offensive line has zero discipline.
It is that, but I will say I tried to warn you about that Brian Flores.
No, I agree.
That scheme is nasty. It is right now. It's probably one of the nastiest schemes a quarterback can see. We played that sound last week of Brock Purdy saying, "Man, your scheme is nice." Telling Brian Flores after, like, dude, what you got something going on. It on third. What I tell you guys about third down? What did I tell you? What did I tell you guys about third down? I said they got to stay out of third and long. They were in third and long the whole damn game.
Well,
they were in third long the whole game.
The problem
not just third and 7+. I'm talking about third and like 10, third and 13.
Because
offensive line penalties, pre-snap penalties. They're an undisciplined football team. I love D'Amico Ryans, but your team is undisciplined. They were last year. They are this year.
No, still are. That's you're starting to see the beginning of a player coach having to figure out you can't always be nice. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to start getting tougher on these guys. And
totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it was disappointing to see it get worse from week 1 to week 2 to week 3.
He's your best players too. It's Larry Tunsil's one. He's the main violator. He's like the main violator. It's like, so you got to start with your best player, and you need to discipline him, and then I think it'll have a domino effect there, because I want to say his penalties. He's up to like 10 already.
Oh yeah, no, I mean
crazy.
That one drive they had where you could still try and fight back in that game. And it's like 3rd and 4, something like that. And they get 3 straight false starts.
Crazy.
And then they make a big play, and it's a legal procedure. You push them back 5 more. You're like, really? Really, guys? You can't.
It's like I said, I'm with you. I agree with you. It's an issue because it was an issue last year. Remember last year they were the most penalized team on the road. Remember I gave you guys that stat. They were the number 1 penalized road team in 2023, and 2024 not much improvement there. Still very undisciplined on the road.
Yeah, no, and it's discipline in the defense as well. We talk about the defense biting in on runs and play action and biting in on things and then getting pulled off and guys just blowing past them. The lack of discipline in the secondary was definitely seen in this game, that they just made a lot of reasons. Just overall, it's a very, very undisciplined team.
I think the Cowboys one is ugly too because
it was ugly.
Their issue, they're obviously. I told you guys coming in. I said, man, the Baltimore Ravens. This is a bad matchup for them when they're dealing with this rush defense, which is one of the worst in the league. And it the Ravens did exactly what I thought they would do. They pretty much decided, let's step away from our usual identity of throwing the football, trying to be air raid. Let's run right downhill at these Cowboys. That's definitely the best. That's the best course of action. And I think everybody's going to try that until the Cowboys figure something out. The Cowboys got a D tackle issue.
Oh yeah,
it is now glaring, ladies and gentlemen.
No. And then
got a big deficiency, a Shakespearean flaw in the middle of that defense, and it is at D tackle.
Nope. And then Jerry Jones still came out and tried to gaslight the fans again. So I saw the people on my timeline who believed it, and I saw the people on my timeline who were like, Jerry is lying. He is lying to you. Just to let you know, he is lying straight up to your face right now.
What did he say? The roster's fine or something like that?
No, he said we couldn't afford Derrick Henry, which is a outright bold lie. Because I can tell you, everyone else in the NFL can afford players. Every single other team can find a way to do it. And you go, well, I'm sorry, we had to pay Dak and CD, so we'll never be able to sign another player the rest of our lives. Sorry, guys, those guys wanted too much money, so we will never. You can make the cap work, dude. Everyone does.
They don't want to pay the cash. I think it's the cash.
No, I get that, but don't say we couldn't afford it. Say I choose to not win games because I'm too cheap of an owner. Say that. That is the truth. Because you could.
Like I said, they're not that cheap because they are paying top dollar for a quarterback and top dollar for a receiver.
Yeah.
I just think they are not. There's no urgency for them to win.
No, there's not.
And do it by any means necessary.
Well,
they want to do it their way, and their way is homegrown players. We pay our guys. We like our guys.
Yeah.
Going outside to go get other guys, that's not what the Cowboys do. That's not the way they operate.
No, because you might have to pay them a little. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But to say we couldn't afford Derrick Henry when clearly they could is like they could make that work. It's easily they could have. They didn't want to because he wanted more money. They wanted to pay him, which is fine. Say that.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda, man.
Right.
Now you are where you are. Your run game on offense and your rush defense are bad, two of the worst in the NFL right now.
But
and I don't know how you win a Super Bowl with.
But I'll say on a positive note, man, how about Michigan pulling off that win?
Yeah, no, and pulling off a win with only less than 40 yards passing. Yeah, they didn't even get to 50 yards passing. I don't believe in that game.
When USC took the lead, you went, well, that's the game. Because they can't throw, and USC
didn't get going until the second half either. Like they didn't. I don't think they didn't get a first down in the first half. So that Michigan defense, I will give Sark a lot of credit. I thought Lincoln Riley would just copy the Sark blueprint. It's just like, hey, but clearly he doesn't have the athletes that Sark has to copy that blueprint. He doesn't have the speed that Sark has on the edges to be able to exhaust Michigan sideline to sideline. So that's what I was impressed with. That Michigan defense is still legit. Just because it looked versus Texas don't mean that Michigan defense with 4 or 5 NFL players ain't legit. It's legit, and it showed you that was the case versus Lincoln Riley and Michigan. Sorry, USC. So Michigan. I was surprised. I don't know how you win this day and age throwing the ball for 40 whatever the yards.
No, I don't know how USC allows massive runs when you're like, look, they're just going to run the ball. We don't even have to. Don't even put a secondary in. Just put out linebackers and D-line.
They got a hard time. They can't tackle yet. I mean, it's so weird to say that, but their defense is improving, but they're not a great tackling defense.
It wasn't, but to see that for them to be able to get that win, I loved it. As a Texas fan, that was a great win for Michigan.
It's a big one. No, it was, and Tennessee beat Oklahoma, but not by as much as I thought. Oklahoma's defense it's good. Yeah. It's a good defense. Their offense is dreadful. It's one of the worst offenses that we've seen in modern history for Oklahoma. Like, we haven't seen an offense this bad for Oklahoma in a long time. Had to bench their starting quarterback, and now they're in quarterback.
I think, too, it can be stated, with the transfer portal, you can't keep losing offensive identities as powerful as Lebby and Lincoln Riley, because they just had to basically reset that offense twice in like 4 years.
You shouldn't have let Dylan Gabriel go. If you knew you were in that dire straits with your quarterback situation, you should have. That's what the big money's for.
Yep.
You pay to keep those guys around. You say, oh no, we'll pay you more than what Oregon's offering. You just stay here, run our system. And I don't know how that went, but I don't know. That's, to me, their first mistake in miscalculation.
Yeah.
You get a veteran quarterback that knows how to run a certain system you're in.
Yeah.
You just bring in a person that knows how to run that system and keep the quarterback around. and then you deal with the consequences later. They assumed Jackson Arnold, but I heard Jackson Arnold was a turnover machine in practice. He was in the bowl game. Why did they assume he was gonna all of a sudden be, I don't know, a different quarterback overnight? I don't understand that. And
no, it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, so I don't know. The rivals that Texas has to play. Only Arkansas, I guess, looks really good, but the Oklahoma A&M, A&M barely pulled out a win over Bowling Green.
That was not a great
possession win over Bowling Green. It was a win, good win.
It was a win, and it depends if they stay with Reed at quarterback. He'll be much better by the end of the season. You assume he'll be better. He's a freshman, so you assume he would improve as the season goes on. But at the same part, it's still a freshman that you're trying to stick out there. So or Wegman, who just hasn't looked good at all either. So
no, like I said, Texas rivals. Arkansas, was it Green, the quarterback? He's not even completing 60% of his passes, but I mean he's making some plays out there as a young quarterback. But there's no quarterbacks other than Georgia's quarterback Carson Beck that I fear on this schedule for Texas.
No, and then here's a big game looking at Texas, Bama, Georgia plays this weekend.
Yeah,
which is a big game because if Georgia beats Bama, then that game, Georgia Texas, then retains its possibly the biggest game biggest game in DKR history. But if they lose to Bama, and that's out the window. The biggest game. It's still a huge game because it's still Georgia, and they're still going to be really, really good.
They'll be top.
But it won't be in that conversation for the best ever of 1 versus 2 and that. So, and Texas still got to beat Oklahoma. I get it. They look bad. It doesn't mean anything. It's a rivalry game.
And Texas will face a backup quarterback in their next game because Mississippi State lost Blake Shapen for the season.
That's right.
Texas is getting if you look at the quarterbacks they've played and the quarterbacks they have to play, the football gods are shining upon Texas. Texas is good, but they will not play any really elite quarterbacks on the schedule other than Carson Beck.
Yeah,
who's considered to be a top-notch.
No, and that's I've seen some people. We've had some on the text and everybody else that the worrywarts of our Texas fandom that are a little bit worried that Texas will not be tested at all in the passing game. Really,
they basically won't be tested until they. Honestly, that's true. They won't be tested until they either get to maybe the SEC title game could present that, the college football playoff. But they're right about that. They won't be tested. There's just no quarterback or offense that can do it right now. There's none of them are prolific. None of them guys, not one on the schedule. I've looked at all. Now there may be a game where Texas having an off game and they got a really good game plan and they're having a great game. That could happen. But right now, no, not even Georgia's offense is really built and constructed that way.
They don't have the connection with the wide receivers and tight.
They don't have
so many of those important guys left last season that Carson Beck hasn't rebuilt that chemistry with anybody. He's got a couple weeks to get there though. So maybe he'll find it. Before we get too much further in the show, let me introduce you to my co-host. I feel like we should do this before.
So much to cover. I know that was a little preview. We had like 8 topics in there. No, trust me, there's a lot to get into. I'm glad we did that. We needed to do that.
Get through that out there. My co-host is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro, brother. Yeah, I feel like that. I feel like you can just go smorgasbord and just kind of keep hitting everything.
Yeah.
But of course, our hot topic will be Arch Manning and his performance. We'll talk about that. There are, I guess, mixed reviews about Arch Manning's performance, which we'll get into. Sorry, I saw a mosquito in it. I couldn't help it. It was automatic. My reaction. I thought that was like, I couldn't help it.
Did Arch Manning clap a lot or something?
Jay Barron got a penalty for that in the game, actually. No, sorry about that. The mosquito was right there in my face. I had to do it. But no, we'll get into Arch Manning. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about his first impressions of his young quarterback. He ended up being a little bit over 50% completion percentage. He ended up with 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions in that game. I think a little over 270 something yards passing for a little over 250 yards passing for Arch Manning. So we'll get into it. I mean, I think there were flashes of brilliance, and I think there also were growing pains and teachable moments. I told you guys it won't be 5 touchdowns and 29 plays. I tried to tell you guys that on Friday. I said, listen, don't get too excited. Don't get overhyped about the 5 touchdowns and 29 plays, the 2 touchdowns in the first 3 plays. And I knew Logan fans were going to have their expectations maybe a little too lofty and forget that he's just a freshman, even though he's a Manning. He's a Manning, but just a freshman. And freshmen, they have the highs and they have lows because they're just teenagers and they're all over the place and they have no baseline of consistency. So yeah, you get the flashes of brilliance, and you go, wow, if they can do that every play, that guy can be one of the best players we've ever seen at the University of Texas. And you're right. But you also, with that, you're going to have the dips, and you're going to have the growing pains and the lapses. And I think those teachable moments, those are necessary. I'm glad they happened versus ULM. You're going to have a few more, but I think if he does start versus Mississippi State, knock on wood right now, so we don't know how that's going to go for Quinn. If he does start versus Mississippi State, then I think you'll see an exponential leap of improvement from first start to second start, because there were just some things, and I mean, the deep ball, right? He chased the deep ball a little bit. I told you guys that he was going to bring verticality back in the offense, and I was like, guys, I'm telling you, he's going to throw it deep because he likes to throw it deep. Sark believes he's a better deep ball thrower. They revealed that in the broadcast than Quinn Ewers is, so he likes to throw it deep, and Sark wants the deep ball added back or infused back into the offense, and he chased the deep ball a little too much. Yeah, even Sark will admit, got a little too greedy with the deep ball, fell in love with it a little too much. That's a lesson to be learned. And the offense changed a little bit with Arch out there. And I think Sark is still getting used to what Arch's preferences are and how he, plays the game as a quarterback and sees the game as a quarterback. So that'll get better too. Sark calling plays for Arch will get better. So, I mean, the fact that you scored 50 plus points and there are all these teachable moments for Arch, I think it's a really good thing. So I actually am pleased with what I saw. I know some people are disappointed in what they saw because your expectations were a little unrealistic. Not gonna lie to you. That's why I had the segment on Friday, like, hey, it's not gonna be that. Okay, enjoy it. Enjoy watching the little teaser, little preview to the future of Texas football, but it ain't gonna be 5 touchdowns and 29 plays. That is rare. I kept telling you that don't happen. That was like some Disney script that was written. That's not the way football. That's not the way football go. That ain't how football go. So this is how football go. You have lessons you learn. Young players, they don't have a baseline of consistency. He'll probably develop his faster than most because he's a prodigy and he's a Manning. And he's getting not only coaching from Sark, but probably a little coaching from his uncles. So nobody has more resources to improve than he does. And so, and have the ability as well. So it'll happen and he'll get there. But guys, remember, the irony is when Quinn started his first game versus ULM, his first damn pass was a pick. And he was like the highest rated quarterback in recruiting history when he committed to Ohio State and came to Texas. And he threw a pick like on his first damn play to ULM because he was a young quarterback, and young quarterbacks, that's how they operate. I remember young Sam Ehlinger? All over the place. Picks and critical moments, bad decision making. That's how young quarterbacks are. Yeah. And then by the time they get to their second, third year in the system, a baseline of consistency develops. That's what's going to happen to Arch too. So it's okay that he had those growing pains. I'm not freaking out about it at all. Some people did. I expected it, and I liked what I saw.
Again, like, you want to see a guy get a little bit maybe humbled on some of those passes that in high school you could make that pass with 3 defenders around a guy. Don't make that pass in college football. You don't need to make it. You might be able to make it 40% of the time, but you also may throw a pick when you do it or make it broken up. So you don't need to throw those passes, those types of things. I kind of going back and looking at the game again on Sunday, I kind of have I started to equate this game for Arch Manning like a minor league pitcher, where it seemed like he was working on things and trying to stay away from, like, he was doing certain things. First of all, he didn't run the ball at all.
Well, because he was discouraged. Sark told him, don't.
No, I get that. And that was the thing is he was told not to run the ball. They go, we can't have you get hurt too. So we need you to stay back. But it's him working on what he was doing. We need you to work on this part of your game. We know you can run. We can put that in whenever we want. We don't need you to work on that. We need you to work on some other things when we have Louisiana Monroe, because if you have to play next week, we don't get to keep working on things really. We have to then jump into every play matters. So we can kind of work on some things and work on where your reads are. We can work on spreading the ball around, which he did spread the ball around a ton in that game. You can work on some different things. I thought it was much more planned out of, we're going to try and work on some of these connections with different receivers. We're going to work on finding your reads. We're going to work on some of those pieces, and a big piece of it, staying in the pocket and trying to, instead of having as many rollouts and things like that, kind of take away his comfort on a little bit of those, get him more used to playing in there. And at the end of the day, he didn't do poorly in that situation. If you go to a pitcher and you say, we know you can throw 102, but don't throw any fastballs in this game. I just want you to go out there and I want you to work on your splitter and your curve and your changeup and all of that. It's going to be a little bit of a different game. I think when you take away some of Arch's abilities and you try and make him into a different player, he's going to have a couple more errors. He's going to be a little bit off kilter and maybe not as confident or maybe not as comfortable in some of those situations. And he did really fine in that situation. I'm with you. I was expecting an interception or two. I was expecting a couple of, bad reads and throwing into coverage because he's a freshman. That's what happens.
Exactly. No, and I love what you said because I agree with you. I think Sark discouraged him running and said, no. First of all, we can't have you. We don't major in the run game anyway, and we can't have you getting hurt. So, that's something that, hey, in the start of SEC play, maybe we can throw that out there. But right now, don't run. And I thought they would have more moving of the pocket. They did move the pocket a little bit, but that's something that's a strength for Arch, and I thought they would do it more. I think the reason they didn't move the pocket more was because they didn't want to encourage him running.
Yeah,
they moved the pocket. He'd be like, I'm just gonna run. I see that green grass, and Sark's like, no. I don't even want to give you the opportunity to see a lot of green grass. You need to your point, work on certain things. I think the one coaching point, because I know we got the Horn headlines coming up here, and we'll come back and hear from Sark what his first impressions are of his young quarterback. But I think the easy teaching point, the first coaching point for Arch in that game, to me, is the most obvious one. You got to take what the defense is giving you.
Uh-huh. Yep.
You got to on the first interception. It was most obvious lesson. He really wanted that read, and honestly, I wouldn't doubt that because that was obviously on the scripted plays. So that's something they obviously worked on in practice on the scripted plays all week long, and you can tell either Sark told him that play's gonna be open, that guy's gonna be open, or in practice it was always open. That guy. Because he didn't take his eyes off of him. Even after pressure, under duress, the guy came at him, and he was able to avoid the sack and still coming back. So I was like, dude, Jaden Blue is wide open on the wheel route on your backside. You said to hell with the progressions. This guy's going to be open. And sometimes coach will tell you that, hey, once you get this play here, trust me, they're going to be playing this coverage. This is your primary. This guy's going to be open here. But there's also the saying, and my man Shannon always says it, be coachable, don't be a robot. And he was a robot in that moment. He was stubborn in his insistence that I'm going to that read. That guy's going to be open because he wasn't. Like he wasn't.
He was not open.
It was 3 ULM guys over there. It was like, no, he wasn't open. But so that's the first lesson. You got to take what the defense is giving you. And it's not in the young quarter. And Quinn was like this. I remember when Quinn was like this. Yeah. Young quarterbacks see it as them basically they're a defeat. Like they're being defeated, like a defeatist attitude as a quarterback to take the check down and to take underneath. And it's like, no. That's the smart way to go about it. Even Patrick Mahomes had to learn that lesson. Remember, he wouldn't take the check down and take the underneath. He wouldn't take what the defense is giving. At one point, you do have to do that, and then instead of chasing the big play, they'll come naturally to you because the defense will adjust to you. Getting 6, 7, 8 yards at a time, they'll adjust to that, and when they do, you'll notice the opportunity as a quarterback to take the shot and take the big play. So he didn't want to take what the defense was giving him at all. He wanted to take what he wanted from the defense.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, you can't do that. That's not going to work for you. You're going to lose more often than you win in that case.
Yeah. No. And I mean, especially when you're talking about throwing not with your feet right, not getting into it because the guy's coming right at you and you're trying to, I mean, everything about it was a very much freshman play.
It was.
And you saw it. But again, you want to humble him because you did see that he was able to dominate in his last appearance. He has been a Manning his whole life. He's been told, so there is a flip side of it where sometimes you have to go, no, ULM picked you off twice. Remember that. Remember that you are not, you're not perfect. You're not going to be able to do it. And no one is. But you can be great, but you just have to always be working to be better and better because if you just start to think, and you're right, Quinn was definitely that kind of guy early in his career at Texas.
I remember that.
That Quinn was, I can make any throw. I've been told my whole life I can make any throw. So I'm going to make the throw. And, you see that with young quarterbacks. It's great. You want to have that confidence, but you just have to be a little bit more humble in it to say, well, that guy's got 3 on him. I bet somebody else is open.
If he's got 3 of them, the math of football tell you somebody's got to find him. And Jaden Blue was like, just now, could he have completed to Jaden Blue? Jaden Blue had 7 targets. You know how many him and Arch connected on? 1.
Yeah.
Basically, most of his what he had 14 incompletions in that game because half the incompletions were to Jaden Blue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically Jaden Blue and deep balls is why his completion percentage was so low. He threw 10 deep balls, 8 of them in the first half. Now, I told you guys that deep ball would come back with Arch. I did not predict that. I'll say I was not seeing 8 deep passes in the first half. He started slinging that thing.
Yeah.
And the first one was a pick, and he had no fear. Even if the first one was a pick, he's like, nope, I'm coming right back at it, baby. Boom, and he hit Bond, I believe, on that long one. So yeah, I think we'll hear from Sark, but I think that's probably something they want him to be a little bit more judicious on. But it was basically the deep ball inaccuracy and the chemistry with Jaden Blue. Him and Jaden Blue couldn't really figure it out. The wheel routes, some of the screens.
I think there could be
chemistry.
You could say there might be something to that if Jaden Blue probably doesn't practice a ton and has got the jersey on, and they're trying to keep him and then he got banged up in the Michigan game, but he's been practicing with Quinn in the ones. And so he maybe doesn't practice much. And then this week, Jaden Blue wasn't, I know they said they ramped him up, but you're kind of still in that weird range of you don't know if he's going to play in the game or not. And I could see that maybe there's just not the practice time between the two of them that you would have liked to have seen, where maybe he's playing with a different back a little bit more, that he's used to reading that route different.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, they got one of the picks was, that was to Jaden Blue, tipped off his fingers, and because he really wasn't open.
Yeah,
he wasn't really open. You were trying to make him, make a spectacular catch, which he could have. So this goes back to, I think you're right. It could just be the practice. They just need more time. I mean, Jaden Blue's the catalyst of that offense right now. I mean, who saw him getting 25 rushes and 7 targets, 32 opportunities? That's a lot.
No, this is what we talked about a little bit before, and I was trying to explain it. They're like, why, people are in that conservative mindset of, well, save him for SEC and don't put these guys out there. And you think you got to remember with Jaden Blue, and it's kind of the thing with Quinn. If we see Quinn come back in Mississippi State, these guys are trying to get drafted into the NFL. These guys are trying to win awards. These guys are trying to raise their stock. And Jaden Blue especially. Jaden Blue understands this is his year to get drafted to the NFL.
Yes.
Because next year, C.J. Baxter's back, and he's supposed to be your premier back. So Jaden Blue understands, if I go out and have a great season this year, then all of a sudden I can go get picked up in the NFL draft and I can go follow my dream, versus I kind of then have to take more a route of maybe I'll get an undrafted free agent because someone will see me, but I won't be the feature back, so I can't get as high. I don't have the security in it. So I get, and Sark gets that. And Sark wants to see another quarterback go early, or another running back go early.
Sark would love that, but you do have to weigh the fact that you've gotten a running back nicked up in every game.
Yeah.
Like every game except Colorado State, a running back has gone down and getting nicked up of some sort. So you do have to be really careful about the usage.
I mean, Gibson got nicked up in this one.
You haven't even gotten to the big bodies yet.
No, and Gibson
you haven't even gotten to the big bodies in the physical play yet. So I would say 32, that's a little much.
I thought it was a bit much too.
I'm going to say it's a bit much. I'm going to say once you got to him getting 20 rushes and he got 100 yards, I'm going to say you should pull him. He had him in on the first play of the fourth quarter, and I was like, that's a little much. You're up by 30 or 40 at the time.
Yeah, I think the fact that Gibson got nicked up in this game is probably a little bit more of why Jaden Blue got more action.
Agree, but also more reason why you got to be a little careful.
I agree.
Because Trey Weiser didn't play because he's got a hamstring injury.
Yeah.
So you got C.J. Baxter went out for the season. Christian Clark out for the season. Jaden Blue has gotten hurt. Trey Weiser has gotten hurt. Jared Gibbs. I'm like, no, at this point, I think the football guys are trying to tell you, your running backs ain't going to make it through the season.
Yeah.
You got to be really careful. And that's why, but it's tough because, I mean, you got Belton Gardner. You got Colin Page, actually. I'm going to lie. Colin Page might need to be your guy that helps you come in and close. Like he looked pretty good.
He did
closing, right?
He did look good this one. He didn't look as good in some other games that he came in to close. But this one, no, I was loving it, man. I was loving watching College Page at the end of this game.
6 yards a pop out there. They're looking pretty good.
No, in front of the biggest crowd in DKR history?
Oh, is that what it was?
I think
for Arch, was it?
I think that they said there's jamming more and more people in this building every week getting it ready.
Damn right, by standing room only, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's get to your Horn headlines here, and then we'll come back and hear from Steve Sarkisian on the other side, not behind the Burn Orange curtain. But let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series with the Angels over the weekend, 3-1. Jose Altuve reached his third career 2020 season, while Yordan Alvarez left Sunday's game early with after injuring his knee while sliding into second base. The Astros now move on to a series with the Mariners and can clinch the division and a playoff berth with one win in the series. The Rangers dropped their series to the Mariners over the weekend, but played spoiler with a walk-off single by Marcus Semien in the bottom of the ninth to dampen Seattle's playoff hopes. The Rangers will take the day off before heading to Oakland for the final A's series in the Oakland Coliseum. In college football, the Texas Longhorns finished up non-conference play with a 51-3 win over Louisiana Monroe on Saturday. Arch Manning threw for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns in his starting debut, but also had 2 picks in the game, while Jaden Blue returned from injury to tally 124 rushing yards and 4 total TDs. Elsewhere, Michigan toppled USC 27-24 with a late scoring drive. Utah got a 22-19 win over Oklahoma State. Tennessee had no problem beating Oklahoma 25-15. And the biggest upset of the weekend, BYU took down number 13 Kansas State 38-9. After 4 weeks of action, Texas remains in the number 1 spot in the AP poll. And in the NFL, the Texans got embarrassed by the Vikings 34-7 with C.J. Stroud throwing 2 interceptions and Houston only racking up 38 rushing yards in the game. And the Cowboys tried to rally late with 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns, but still lose to the Ravens 28-25. Baltimore rushed for 274 yards in the game, with Derrick Henry having 3 total touchdowns. Tonight, the Jaguars face the Bills, and the Commanders take on the Bengals, and that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. All right, you know what? Let's just hit the break, and then we'll go behind the burn-ons curtain. And then we'll just hear from Sark in this post game, discussing the Longhorns win over ULM, and then we'll continue to talk Texas football. We'll do that on the other side. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's get right to it. In the post game, it didn't take long for the media to ask Sark about Arch and his first impressions of Arch's first start of his career versus ULM. So here is Steve Sarkisian when he was asked about his first impressions of Arch's start versus the Warhawks.
Well, I thought, we went into the game plan that we felt like we had to be a little bit aggressive down the field with the style of play that they were getting, and he took his shots, and we hit them, and we missed a couple. Right, we had one. Silas Boldham, I thought, made a great catch. They overturn it. He won off the fingertips of Jaden Blue up the sidelines. Another, couple other contested catches, I think, with Wingo and Isaiah downfield. So when you get into that mode a little bit, sometimes you can start to get a little bit greedy, and that's a challenging thing, especially a guy making his first career start, because you feel like you're just hitting them, and you want to keep hitting those things. And so, to be fair to him, I maybe should have found some other just kind of completions in there to keep his rhythm. I thought we kind of did that there at the end of the third quarter. He hit a slant, hit a couple kind of simpler type throws. Because I'd like that completion percentage to be a little higher than it was tonight. But the game plan was a little bit big, little in that way. And then when it's set that way, when those shots aren't there, having the ability to check the ball down, I think that's something that he'll see there's more value in some of those. Instead of throwing up that post, maybe check it down to the running back and create plays that way. But hey, learning lessons, right? I mean, that's, to think he was going to come out and play a perfect game. I don't think anybody in here thought that. I thought he was going to prepare really well, work really hard, do everything he could to play good football. He was going to have some lessons learned, and I think that's what tonight was about.
Yeah, I'm glad Sark said that they could have done a better job of getting him in a rhythm, because I didn't think he was in a rhythm for most of the night. I think there was that stretch after the pick where I think he got into a rhythm, but they did not really work to get him in a rhythm, and it makes sense. Sark said they wanted to attack downfield, and they attacked downfield. And with that, you don't have those timing, rhythmic throws within the offense like that Quinn majors in, right? Quinn's just all the time. His time to throw is like 2.1 seconds. The ball's out so quickly. Those are rhythm throws to get a quarterback in rhythm, to get him in a groove. And they didn't really do that with a young Arch. And I'm glad Sark basically said that was almost intentional on their part, because they wanted to take their shots.
Yeah, so there was that. We know DeAndre Moore is one of his, more popular targets. And I think him going down maybe made him look around. I mean, the fact that he spread the ball around so much, maybe you want to get it to build a rhythm, get a couple guys that he's kind of more focusing on. But at the same part, it's all part of the learning curve. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I agree with him. Yeah, there wasn't a ton of rhythm in him for him.
No, like I said, I felt that way too. Here's Sark talking about Arch coming, basically bouncing back after some of those bad plays, after some of those teachable moments. The interception, he had 2 interceptions in that game, and there was some times where he did seem like he was struggling with pocket presence and some of those things with footwork and mechanics. Here's Sark talking about Arch bouncing back from some of those bad plays this past weekend.
Well, I mean, I'd like to hope that that's something that we really try to preach around here for all of our players, and that, we have a next play mentality. And I think you struggle in our program when you don't, and because in practice you can get exposed. And so I don't think the Arch we saw today in dealing with some of those negative plays was the same guy we saw a year ago at this time, and so he has grown a ton, and that takes a lot of maturity to get that done. I think he's got a really good guy to watch in Quinn, because Quinn has evolved that way as well. But again, I was very proud of him tonight, because, hey, interceptions happen, like that's part of the life of being a quarterback. Hopefully over time they start to get reduced. How he responds to those and then continues to move the offense is really important. And he did a good job of that tonight.
All right, there you go. Got to bounce back from adversity. You want to see your quarterback deal with a little bit of it, because it's inevitable. And how he handles it, I thought he handled the adversity really, really well. Here is talking about, you talked about Quinn there a little bit, at least mentioned Quinn. There's the video, the footage of Quinn on the sideline hyping up his teammates. That's a different Quinn. We didn't see, this is the maturation of Quinn as a leader. We didn't really get to see that Quinn when he first came. He wasn't comfortable in that role. Now, even without starting that game, he is asserting his leadership with the team. This is his team. I love that moment. That was and then Janae Barron's like his hype man there, hyping him up. But here is Sark talking about Quinn's role during that game as a leader, but not necessarily one that's on the field.
I thought Quinn was great tonight. I had a really good conversation with him on the field before the game. He was upbeat, he was positive, and we talked about him doing his best to keep it light with Arch. Because when Arch keeps it light, he's really, really good. We try to not let him get too focused. And so that was kind of Quinn's role tonight, was to keep it light with him, and let him relax a little bit. But Quinn, he's been through this, and he knows what it looks like of staying engaged and staying positive and still being a really good leader. But all that being said, hopefully we can get him back sooner rather than later.
All right. That's Sark talking about Quinn's role. Yeah, I think, and that's the thing about, I'm not sure where Quinn is in his, obviously his recovery from the abdominal strain. I would still, based on what I've seen from Mississippi State, they've lost Blake Shapen, their starting quarterback for the season. I probably would still lean starting Arch. I've said that last week. I'll say it again. I think he needs the reps in case you have to put him in during the stretch run, knock on wood, because we don't need anything more to happen to Quinn. But Quinn needs as much time to recover as possible. Now, watching Arch, you guys, I think everybody understands, okay, there will be growing pains for Arch, and he's going to be amazing. But right now, your best chance to win a championship is Quinn. And there ain't no doubt about it. Like, it's undeniable. And you need a healthy Quinn, fully healthy, or as healthy as he can be. And this is the only stretch where you'll have a luxury of being able to play a young quarterback and feel confident that you'll get a win, even with Arch having growing pains against a Mississippi State.
Yeah. I mean, now we did hear reports that he'd healed really well this last week, and he was feeling a lot better. I would put my odds right now, if I had to bet on it, about 60 to 70% chance Quinn starts in this game with Mississippi State. I think that they're angling that way right now. If he's not 100%, then yeah, I'm fine playing Arch in that game too. But I understand from Quinn's side, he wants to play. And with the bye week too, again, we talk about these guys in the Heisman and the draft and everything else. The difference of a 3-week injury, which it is, if he doesn't play in this game, and a 1-week injury, that's big in draft boards. Well, he was out for a game. He missed a game with an abdominal injury, but it wasn't 3 weeks, which with the bye week after this, it's a 3-week injury.
Okay.
So I think there's some of it that if he can come back and play, they will. And then your hope is, well, you just go put it on Mississippi State too, and you pull them out in the second half. And you get Arch to go play in the second half. So, I mean, that's kind of your hope would be if Quinn's ready to go, that you play well enough that you can go build that lead and he doesn't have to play the whole game anyway. But I think that from the reports at the end of last week, at least Sark really wants Quinn to play in this game.
And I really want him to play too, but like I said, I would, if he re-injures that abdominal strain, then you're talking about him being out for 5 to 6 weeks. You're talking about a much longer period of time. I would, like I said, err on the side of caution. You hope, as a coach, you hope for the best. You plan for the worst.
Exactly.
You have to plan for the worst, and the worst would be he re-injures himself versus Mississippi State because we brought him back a little too fast. Yes. If he is on the fast track to recovery, then basically, if I give him 2 more weeks, he's completely healed.
Yes.
So we're talking about completely healed. That's where I would go. I'm like, if I can get you completely healed up, I think I'd rather do that. Yeah. Now, you're right about the draft stock. You're right about the Heisman, all that kind of stuff. Not saying you're not, but if he gets re-injured in that game,
I agree.
You are gonna be you're gonna want to slap yourself in public.
Oh no,
because you're gonna feel so bad that you could have given him an extra 2 weeks.
Yeah.
To fully recover from it, and yet you were like, nah, because you don't need him for Mississippi State. You don't need him. You know you don't.
No,
they don't even have a starting quarterback. They are a shell of what Mississippi State used to be. They are not. They're gonna struggle this year. They guys, only 10 teams in college football are allowing more rushing yards per game than Mississippi State. The Florida quarterbacks completed 92% of their passes. versus Mississippi State. They are bad. Right? So my point is, all it takes is one miss blitz pickup though, and he hit him in the wrong spot. He torques the wrong way, and then.
I'm with you.
That's why I would, like I said, I hope for the best, plan for the worst. So all the hope stuff, hope is not a strategy with Rod B. I think of it like a coach. I'm planning for the worst case scenario.
No,
and the worst case scenario is I need Arch to have more reps. I need him seasoned in case Quinn goes down, and I need Quinn fully recovered because he doesn't have a history of completing a season without an injury, which, by the way, has once again come to fruition. I plan for the worst, plan for it. Don't hope for the best. Don't be Jerry Jones.
No,
hope is not a strategy.
But this is so I was with you up until, and I still am not opposed to it. I'm saying what I heard, what Sark said, and what we started to hear from the team after last week, at the end of last week on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and all that was, wow, Quinn made a ton of progress on that injury. And when you're getting that, there's two reasons that's said. One is he's playing Mississippi State. Two, they want Mississippi State to prepare for Quinn. And they're not going to say anything. It'll be a game time decision. So
I agree.
It's either way. That's one of it.
Week.
But it was this week. I mean, he said on Thursday Arch was starting. I don't.
But
think
he said all week long. He said,
he's
I haven't made my decision yet. He
yeah.
said all week long. Remember, Michigan's coach Sharon Moore said on Monday that Alex Orji was starting. So he's going to play the gamesmanship thing, and that he should.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, why not take the luxury that you have of giving him time to recover? If you're doing this for the Heisman thing, it's already tough to win a Heisman when you miss any games. Go back to the history of it. There's only been really one quarterback to win it while missing, I think multiple games. If he's probably already like toward the back of it, but we'll have to see depending on what kind of year he has. The Heisman wouldn't be the top priority for me. If I was Quinn, my priority would be you got to be available for the big games because that's what the scouts are going to look at. Your draft stock is rising because of Michigan, not because of ULM, not because of Mississippi State.
No, I get
It's going to rise because of Georgia. It's going to rise because of Oklahoma. It's going to rise because of big games and rise because of college football playoff. I can tell you that right now. They don't really give a damn about you beating up on ULM. And championships is what matters. You want to be a legend at Texas? VY didn't win a Heisman. He won a championship.
Yeah,
that's why he's a legend.
Yeah.
All right. That's so. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. But.
No, I look, and again, I'm not saying you should put Quinn out there if he's not healthy. I am saying if Quinn's healthy, he's going to play, whether we want him to or not.
No. If he's healthy, everything's off. But is he going to be healthy? Would mean he's 100%, and he won't be. That's just that's football. Everybody's going to be hurt. Everybody plays hurt, so he's hurt. He's going to play hurt. Now it's just how hurt is he going to be?
Yeah.
And there's no doubt 2 extra weeks to recover means he's going to be a lot more recovered than he would be if he plays next week.
That's true.
By the way, if he's playing next week, then he's going to start practicing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like today. Instead of 2 weeks from now.
I got you.
That's the only reason I'm saying like that's very different. So he's going to be hurt. He's not fully recovered. There ain't no way. He's fully recovered. And he won't be ever fully recovered. But the thought process, he's got a lot more time to recover if he doesn't play for Mississippi State. Because if he's playing for Mississippi State, he's practicing today.
Yeah, I got you.
Right, like today, he's already getting geared up. Like Monday,
I'm assuming Monday.
The Monday off, and then Tuesday he practices.
Yeah, I'm assuming Monday right now is they are going to run him through a lot of different kind of tests and things like that to see how he's feeling on a Monday. That would be my assumption of what they're going to do today and take it from there. I can't tell you if it's gamesmanship or if it is because they think now he could have played this week. If it is a big game, Quinn would have played this week.
And if it's a big game, I want him to play. But
no, I get that. I'm saying from Texas, from what Sark is saying and what Sark is going to do. Sark played Jaden Blue a lot this week, and I wouldn't have expected that either. So I'm going to go with that and say I'm just saying I think that they will play him if he says he's ready to go.
No, I don't disagree with that because I didn't expect the Jaden Blue thing.
Yes.
I didn't expect Jaden Blue to play that much. That was a lot. 25 rushes for Jaden Blue. Sark was making a statement. I'm not sure what the statement was, but he was making a statement about it. All right, we come back. We'll get into the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, and we'll get into the musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Folks, welcome back. This is Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babies. Let me tell you about Dr. Greg Eckert, and his team. Right now, my man, Dr. Eckert, is doing great work. As a matter of fact, I owe him and his team a huge debt of gratitude because I was actually going in for a routine checkup and a cleaning. I thought everything was fine, and turns out everything not so fine. During their checkup, which is a thorough one, they found that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways, and I was on the verge of a disastrous situation, folks. But trust me, I was saved because Dr. Eck and his team, they came to my rescue. They made sure that I was informed and educated about the process, made sure I was comfortable with the process, got the procedure scheduled, and had everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days, and my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better, thanks to Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team. Now, hopefully for you, it's not as serious as having all your wisdom teeth extracted. Hopefully it's something relatively routine, like a checkup or just a cleaning. But if it is something serious, you're in great hands with Dr. Eckert. Whether it's general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. As a matter of fact, right now, he can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile. You're going to smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, or you need dentures, or you already have dentures, call Dr. Eckert today to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a complimentary consultation, so you have nothing to lose but everything to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. So what are you waiting for? Give him a call, 512-345-3166, 512-345-3166. And right now, when you go to Dr. Eckert and you tell him that you're a Horn listener, you'll get free Zoom whitening with whatever procedure or treatment that you're having there. Free Zoom whitening. You can't beat it. DrEckert.com, DRUECKERT.com.
Back in the Rodcast here on a Monday morning, and Matt makes it a Smooth Soul Monday. I might be playing the wrong playlist today. It's a Smooth Soul Monday this morning on the Horn.
Nobody would have known if you didn't say anything.
I know.
I know.
I didn't realize it until I said what day of the week it was. On the Horn. You gotta keep playing these Smooth Soul Monday, the easy win to your work week here on a Monday morning. We'll get to the big fat poll today. Why don't we do that? Big text lines open 512-447-3776 and on the X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, let's get to the big fat poll of the day. We normally ask you after games, and we'll do it again this week. Who was the MVP for Texas against ULM? Who was the MVP for Texas? The ones I put on there.
Oh, well, yeah.
I mean, I think we're gonna know who it is. I think this one is an easy one again. I put Arch on there. I put Jaden Blue. I'm assuming is going to walk away with this one. Jaden Blue was the man in this game. Also, Anthony Hill. Heck of a game for Anthony Hill. Put him on there, and then I threw on Leon Lafau as well, the big safety, led the team in tackles as well, Leon Lafau. So I put those two linebackers on there. I mean, again, this is one of those things that defense has been really good, and the teams haven't been good enough against them that you haven't seen like a standout player that's like, man, that was the matchup, and they dominated that matchup. But the defensive line has held everybody. The defense, I mean, when you watch that Michigan game against USC, you thought about it and you went, man, that makes you feel a little bit better about that Texas run defense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it should.
So yeah. I give credit to them. They just don't have, not one of them has stood out enough that I could put them ever in these MVP conversations for the game. But I just want to give a shout out. They're having a heck of a season so far, doing everything right in non-conference. It seems like Jaden Blue's the easy answer, but maybe we'll get some votes for Anthony Hill too, leading that defense, being very impactful. I should almost had the pick six.
Yeah. It should have been a pick six. They didn't really even need that block. Was it Trey Moore that had the block
Trey
there,
Moore in the block in the back.
Yeah. I mean, technically, I guess he did contact him in the back, but man, he didn't need it. Anthony Hill, I think, would have scored anyway. But yeah, he took it. I mean, Anthony Hill I told you guys going into that week, Pro Football Focus had him as one of the top 5 highest graded linebackers in the Power 4. Once again, I think he was the highest graded SEC linebacker in week 4. He's trending toward being potentially an all SEC linebacker this year. I mean, that Texas defense right now, I'm a little reluctant to use the word elite, but that's the way they're playing right now. But they have not been tested, and as we point out, they won't be.
No,
they won't get a legitimate real test. They may have a bad day, but there's no elite prolific offense really left on the schedule. Georgia's probably the closest you're going to get.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Like A&M's not, Oklahoma's not, Mississippi State's not.
No. I mean,
who's your elite offense that's
Kentucky,
left?
Kentucky hung in there with Georgia, but it was 12-13 was the game?
Yeah. That was like a slobber knocker. Yeah. I was like, it's offensively, Texas right now, they could pull away, looks like, from the rest of their opponents, except for Georgia. Like I said, Georgia's the only one. But the rest of them, man, they said that Texas defense, I don't know if they will be tested. So we don't know how good they are. We know they're good. We just don't know how good they are. And I think they are I think they are right now. The numbers say they're elite. The numbers say Texas has an elite defense. And that would be top in college football with top 15, basically. I think you can call yourself elite if you're top 15. They're a top 10 defense right now. But I'm with you. It's a group effort, so it ain't just one guy. It'd be different. Jadae Barron's playing at a high level. Malik Muhammad's playing at a high level. Michael Tavis playing at a high level. Makuba is, and then Anthony Hill we just talked about is playing really well. You just brought up Leon Lafau at the linebacker spot. He's playing really well.
Michael Taft's just taking out players on the sideline.
Taft that out there exactly.
That play, hammer. And they laid the hammer, and it was like that was clean. That was a clean hammer. They had it looked so violent they had to call the foul and then take it back up. They're like that was clean.
It was clean.
But it
ended up being a bad play for them because I want to say on that play they were at the illegal man downfield.
Yeah.
And they get a penalty and the dude took the hit from Taft. I was like, that's bad right there. But no, you're right. Taft is Taft Daddy right now. If you go look at, I'll give you a real quick stat. Highest graded SEC DBs after 4 weeks. 4th highest graded is Michael Taft.
I just laughed.
top grade is Jahdae Barron. So
I laugh at going back when we were doing Ball Don't Lie. We were campaigning for Taft to get a scholarship, and you watch that guy play now. You're like, yeah, if you'd be crazy not to give that man a scholarship at this point. That guy, we were doing it because he helped you get Arch. But man, what an impact he's had on this team.
I agree. No, I'm with you. He is he's right now in that secondary. He's one of your leaders in that secondary, no question about it. So I'm with you on the defense. Hard to give it to one guy on D because every week it feels like there's a different guy.
Yeah, like Leona
LaFau this year, and Anthony Hill did, Jahdae Barron one week, and then Makuba one week that has a big game. Colin Simmons one week that has a big game. So they just had so many great players stepping up. It's Jaden Blue for me, but I can make the case for an Anthony Hill. Anthony Hill didn't even really play much in the second half because they were playing Leon LaFau and the younger guys. Yeah. He basically made his impact on like 2 straight drives. That was it. And then really he didn't. I don't know if he played a lot the rest of the game as Texas began to pull away, or maybe I just didn't notice him as much. But he stood out too. So many guys on defense playing well. All right, that's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Who's your MVP for Texas in that Texas versus ULM matchup and win for the Longhorns? 51-3. They put it on them. All right, let's get to the break. We'll come back. We'll get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Unfortunately, we got to talk about them Texans. We got to talk about them Cowboys and what happened. The fuster cluck of a situation that the Cowboys are dealing with, and the dumpster fire of a performance from the Houston Texans. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, Patrick Davis, he takes it upon himself to make sure that the transition for you from the fun-filled, stress-free weekend to the very stressful, very busy work week. Sometimes that can be traumatic. You can end up with a case of the Mondays as a result. He wants to avoid that and try to make it as smooth of a transition as possible for you from the weekend to the work week. And that is the purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday. Plus, a lot of y'all out there, you may need some smooth soul vibes to deal with the heartbreak of watching what your team did over the weekend. And if you're a Texans fan or a Cowboys fan, you definitely need Smooth Soul Mondays because you did not have the fun-filled weekend that a lot of other sports fans had because you had to watch the dumpster fire of a fustercluck of a performance from your team. We'll get into it. We'll talk about the Cowboys. We'll talk about the Texans as well. We're thankful to Patrick for a Smooth Soul Monday. Also thankful for him for coming up with a topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. Patrick, what is the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day?
Who was the MVP for Texas against Louisiana Monroe is your topic for the Big Fat Poll today. And right now, looks like Jaden Blue getting the early votes.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, he had nobody expected him to get 25 carries in a game.
No.
I didn't know if I expected him to get to 25 carries in any game all season long. But yeah, I mean, and 7 targets. So they were using him in the passing game too. Guys, he's had at least 6 targets in every game he's played in. I don't know if there's any receiver that's had that many targets in every game, at least 6 targets in every game. He is the catalyst of the offense when you think about it. There's not a receiver getting as many targets as he's getting per game. Like I said, he didn't play in one of the games. So, I mean, you're talking about him getting damn near 20 targets in 3 games. I got to go see the receivers and see how many receivers getting close to 20 targets in a game. It ain't. I guarantee you, not a lot of them.
No.
I don't know if anybody's up to that. And then on top of that, now he's getting 25 rushes. He's the catalyst of the offense. If you're looking for somebody who is, really kind of the lifeblood of it, it's Jaden Blue because nobody really can do what he does. You got receivers that can, fill in different roles, and you're really, really deep there. They tried to, I think, introduce Silas Bolden into the circle of trust this week, which was fun to see. But you're deep there, at tight end. I don't know if anybody can do what Gunnar Helm is doing for you right now. If they like playing 12 personnel, that's clear. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But, man, Jaden Blue, like I said, I don't think target-wise anybody's getting as many targets as he's getting or the rest. So you're right when you talk about his NFL prospects, Patrick, because he's never going to be showcased like he is right now. This is it. Even if he came back and he was splitting time with CJ Baxter, he wouldn't be showcased like this.
No, he wouldn't be the guy that can go out there and be a part of, something special and go.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're just, there is some of these guys like the kid from Boise State. I don't think he had another game where he did well, but he only had 11 carries in the game.
Oh, Ashton Genty?
Yes. He only had 11 carries. I still think he had over 100 yards.
No, he's unbelievable.
He still averaged over 10 yards a carry, but they were just beating him by so much they pulled him out of the game, I guess. Because it was embarrassing.
I think they feel bad for it. Yeah, they're feeling bad because I think he can't be one of those guys you can just hand it off to him and he can still be getting like 10 yards a pop against obviously inferior opponents. He's one of them dudes.
Yeah, but it'll be, Jaden Blue, once he gets in the SEC, if he's able to produce like he's been able to produce so far, then that'll definitely up his draft prospects going to the next level.
Yeah, because Sark is showing that he's a guy that not only can, run in between the tackles if he needs to, but that basically there's nothing he can't do at the running back position. Yes. That's what Sark is trying to show off. And you need to be your top receiver in terms of targets. He can be that guy too. Okay, so I'm trying to look at the targets here and see if there's anybody. No, what I'm looking at right now, the most targets anybody's got in the game is 7, and that's him tied with Gunnar Helm. So, yeah, Isaiah Bond had 7 in the Colorado State game. Helm had 7 in the Michigan game. He had 7 in this game versus ULM. So he's honestly, like I said, he had 6 in the Colorado State game. That was he had the second most targets in the Colorado State game. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he ends up with the most targets in the Michigan game. No, sorry, second most behind Helm. So he's got the second most in the Michigan game. He's got 6 behind Helm in the Michigan game. He didn't play in the UTSA game and the ULM game. He ends up leading you in targets with 7. That guy's no. I'll go add it up, but I don't think anybody. I think he's leading the team in targets, or coming close to, even with missing a game. He's pretty close to helping, close to leading. He's one of your top target leaders after even missing a game at running back. So it may, you know what? I think the point is, adding to your point initially, Patrick, this is it for him. He's going to the league after this.
Oh, he has
the whole
to.
point is just go to and then start, maybe him and start going on the same page. Like, hey man, I'll give you the rock and showcase you. You go to the league, and the only thing they need to work out for him is health. Like, knock on wood. If he just stays healthy, relatively healthy, man, he's gonna have a hell of a year with that kind of workload. If they're gonna give him that at least multiple times this season, if he's gonna get 20 plus touches and he's gonna continue to get 6-7 targets. Now, he only connected with Arch on one of them. No, that's the unfortunate thing. There was only 1 of 7 on the target. Yeah. Now, it was a touchdown, but still. I mean, I'm going to need them to be a little bit more, I'm going to need them to have a little bit better chemistry, a little bit more efficiency with that connection. But Jaden Blue is like I said, nobody on the offense seems to be getting the touches that Jaden Blue is getting overall. Targets. I said, maybe I say opportunities, because touches would mean he actually caught it. So opportunities, targets, and rushes. Like, there's nobody even close to him in that regard. All right, that's so he might be the MVP not only for this game, but you might be talking about the MVP of the offense by the time we get later on in the season. That nobody's more valuable to what Texas does than Jaden Blue. All right, let's get to the Horn headlines, and then we'll come back. And unfortunately, we got to break down and dissect what happened to the Cowboys and what happened to the Texans. But first, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series with the Angels over the weekend, 3-1. Jose Altuve reached his 3rd career 2020 season, while Yordan Alvarez left Sunday's game early after injuring his knee while sliding into second base. The Astros now move on to a series with the Mariners and can clinch the division and a playoff berth with 1 win in the series. The Rangers dropped their series to the Mariners over the weekend, but played spoiler with a walk-off single by Marcus Semien in the bottom of the 9th to dampen Seattle's playoff hopes. The Rangers will take the day off before heading to Oakland for the final A's series in the Oakland Coliseum. In college football, the Texas Longhorns finished up non-conference play with a 51-3 win over Louisiana Monroe on Saturday. Arch Manning threw for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns in his starting debut, but also had 2 picks in the game, while Jaden Blue returned from injury to tally 124 rushing yards and 4 total TDs. Elsewhere, Michigan toppled USC 27-24 with a late scoring drive. Utah got a 22-19 win over Oklahoma State. Tennessee had no problem beating Oklahoma 25-15, and the biggest upset of the weekend, BYU took down number 13 Kansas State 38-9. After 4 weeks of action, Texas remains in the number 1 spot in the AP poll. And in the NFL, the Texans got embarrassed by the Vikings 34-7 with C.J. Stroud throwing 2 interceptions and Houston only racking up 38 rushing yards in the game. And the Cowboys tried to rally late with 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns, but still lose to the Ravens 28-25. Baltimore rushed for 274 yards in the game, with Derrick Henry having 3 total touchdowns. Tonight, the Jaguars face the Bills, and the Commanders take on the Bengals. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Let's start with the Cowboys. And I'll give them credit. That was an admirable effort by the Cowboys to make it a game late in the 4th quarter. The Ravens almost had an epic meltdown and to start their season 0-3. But the Cowboys' issues right now are glaring. They got a D tackle problem. Number 1, I think it starts with the D tackle position, and I think from then on it's a kind of negative domino effect for the rest of the defense. They allowed 274 rushing yards. Now, we talked about this last week that Baltimore was going to just run the ball. I think they ended up running the ball with 45 times or something like that. I mean, they ran it a ton against the Cowboys, and we said, hey, if you're playing the Cowboys, why would you throw the football? Like, you need to just decide to run the football. How about this? Lamar Jackson averaged 3.3 2 air yards per attempt against the Cowboys. It was the lowest mark of his career. Jackson's only pass over 10 air yards was a 13-yard touchdown to Rashad Bateman. I mean, they essentially decided, all right, guys, I know we want to spread them out and throw it, but this Cowboys team, we need to run the rock. We got the tools to do it. We got Derrick Henry. We got Lamar Jackson. And I think we all saw this coming. And Derrick Henry, 25 rushes for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. He forced 12 total missed tackles. It was the second most by any player in a game so far this season. That is a big part of the Cowboys' problem. That even after the D tackle issue at the point of attack, which we'll get into, but they're not tackling really well. Like on the second and the third level, the defense had 17 total missed tackles. This was more than Dallas had in weeks 1 and 2 combined at Cleveland and versus New Orleans. And they struggled versus New Orleans, of course. They had 15 missed tackles in those games. So we're talking about it getting a little bit worse. And how about this one? That rush defense performance, it was the most rushing yards allowed by a defense since Mike Nolan was the DC in 2020 when Mike McCarthy first got there. And they allowed 294 yards rushing to Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens. Yeah. How about that irony? So I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do because they have to find a solution for their D tackle problem, number one. And you got to do that during the season. And they either have to coach these guys up to get better. Schematically, they need to figure out a way to make the adjustments right now and try to shore up that deficiency because that interior D line for them. I'll give you a nugget about their D tackles and like their overall grade, Pro Football Focus grade. I gave you these last week, but man, the Cowboys right now, the lowest, if you go look at the lowest Pro Football Focus defensive grade for interior D linemen in the league, Cowboys got they have 3 right now of the lowest rated 4. New York Giants DJ Davidson, 27 grade. Then is Dallas Mozzie Smith, 28.9. Jordan Phillips, 29.6. Linval Joseph, 31.4. Those are their Pro Football Focus defensive grades. They're out of 100, by the way, in case you might have been thinking they had a 50 or something. They've been really bad. And I don't see a solution on the roster right now for them in that regard. So either they got to do it schematically to shore this up, or they got to go acquire somebody. They got to go trade for a D tackle and make some kind of big time trade, which is not necessarily Cowboys. That's not really their MO. That's not what they do. But I don't know, Patrick, if they're gonna make it through the entire season with this rush team. It's that bad, guys. It's that they're almost right now incapable of stopping the run.
No, they are incapable of stopping the run. It's not like they're almost. They are. And I mean, now at the end of the game, I don't know what the Ravens were thinking where they weren't able to get it going at the end of the game. I don't know if they just ran out of steam or they thought they were up by enough that they kind of took their foot off the gas, and that's how the Cowboys were able to get some stops and get the ball.
The pass defense is suspect. The Ravens pass defense.
Oh no, I'm not even saying the Cowboys scoring. I'm saying the fact they shouldn't have had the ball 3 times in the fourth quarter.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
it's more along the lines of they should have still been able to run the ball in the fourth quarter and not give the ball back and let Dallas be able to move down the field. So that one, I don't know if they just took their foot off the gas a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, they made a trade for Jonathan Hankins a few years back. I don't think they gave up that much for him in that trade. You don't have to trade for the best defensive tackle because you don't need a pass rushing defensive tackle. And those are the guys who can really shore up that is where it is. They gave up a 6th-round draft pick for the Dallas for Hankins. So that's not a crazy amount to give up for a player like that. I think honestly, between a 4th and a 6th-round pick, maybe 4th or 5th or 6th-round pick, you can get a running back and a defensive tackle on this roster. I don't think it's that much you have to give up to get 2 positions that are woefully lacking in right now.
Yeah. Right now, yeah, I would choose D tackle first right now.
I would too.
Think that's more of a glaring issue.
Yeah, because you can still throw the ball.
You can't run the ball, but exactly. At least you can. There are other ways for you to move the football.
Yes.
Right now, man, if you can't stop the run, it's going to give you all types of issues. I mean, your defense is a sinking ship.
Yeah, because I
do something.
I would wait on the running back probably a couple more weeks to find out who's basically selling and just trying to get rid of players off their roster if they're not winning enough games, and then go for that near the trade deadline. Then I might go get a running back. But I'm with you. I think you need to make a defensive tackle move immediately.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the Cowboys' schedule coming up, but just that division alone. I mean, you got to play the Eagles. They're going to try to run it on you. I'm sure Dan Quinn's probably licking his chops thinking, all right, you know what? Everybody's going to – if they're a running team, then you got to deal with that because you got to stop a team that's their expertise, right? That's something that they major in. But even if teams that don't, they're going to shift their identity just to run it on you.
No, I mean, so you look, they play Thursday Night Football this week against the Giants. They don't really have much of a running game either. So this is one you should still be able to win, go back to 500. But then you play the Steelers, Lions, and 49ers in 3 straight weeks.
Be a problem. Steelers are going to be a problem.
Oh, yeah. They're going to run it over you. The Lions are going to run it over you with Jahmyr Gibbs. And if he's back in Montgomery, they'll run it all over you.
That old line is so physical for the Lions, too.
Yeah. Ooh. You tell Dan Campbell, hey, we need to be a more physical team. Okay.
Exactly. You were going to have a problem with that anyway, but you got to do it. I don't know.
You play the 49ers where hopefully for them they'd have Christian McCaffrey back by then, but even then Mason.
They don't. They still going to run it downhill on you.
They're still going to run it downhill on you.
That's the worst.
Then you go Falcons and Bijan Robinson. You get the Eagles after that with Saquon Barkley, who's been running on everybody. And then you're reprieve the Texans. Then you're reprieve because they can't run the damn football either.
What a segue. But you're right about that, unfortunately. They can't run the damn ball. But yeah, for the Cowboys, I think it's necessary for them to start thinking about making a trade and making an acquisition. Yeah. If they don't, the schedule that Patrick just laid out, man, that's a doomsday scenario for you. And you don't want to necessarily have a 500 record or even a losing record by the midway point of the season. And if you don't make a move to acquire a D tackle of some kind, I fear that's the case for the Cowboys because I don't see a solution, like I said, on the roster right now for them and their rush defense. All right. We'll get to the Cowboys offense. I mean, Dak he helped lead the comeback and then have, I think, almost 400 yards passing with 379 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. They just missed opportunities. They had a couple of chances during the game before things got out of hand. They ended up down 28-6, and then it feels like they exhausted themselves just trying to come back. But they had a couple of chances. It was 14-3. Remember the Ravens went up 14-3 in the first quarter, and they had all the momentum though. And the Cowboys were looking like they were going to respond. They on their way to having a touchdown drive, drove down to the Ravens 9-yard line before they got a holding penalty on Tyler Guyton that backed them up 10 yards. Then Dak hit CeeDee Lamb on that slant the next play, and then he fumbled the ball, knocked out by the Ravens, and then boom. That kind of vanished. All that momentum they had just kind of ceased. And then they had another chance. The Ravens scored a touchdown, I think, right before the half, and they went up 21-3. But remember, Dak and them got a deep pass down the sideline. It's like a 31-yard gain. The very next play, Cowboys looked like they could go put some points on the board. And because the Ravens had a pass interference call, too. There was a pass interference at that point. And then they got another call on Guyton. They got a flag for holding, and it was offsetting penalties, so they didn't get the PI.
Yeah, that was the one,
and that's what cost them. And it was like, so and then the Cowboys had to settle for, I think it was a Brandon Aubrey field goal, one of those long, and that dude is a legit 65-yarder. What? Like, it's crazy. And it's like he might be the best kicker in the league. I haven't looked at a lot of kickers, but I don't know if kickers are casually making 65 yards.
No one's. I mean, the record's what, 66, 67?
The record is 66. Yeah, this dude's going. He's going to break the record, I think, this year.
I mean, because he's doing it like I remember Jay Tuck to get the record this year. Like had to change up his style of how to kick, and he was doing like a half kickoff, half field goal kind of kick to get the power to get there. And Brandon Aubrey's just like, it's another day at the office.
Right? That dude has, man, it's amazing. Like, I think he's going to break. That's my prediction. He's going to break the record this year. Because why wouldn't you give him the chance to?
I mean, they almost did a 71-yarder in the game a week ago. They almost did it because it was going to be like a 66-yarder, and then they got a false start and moved it back, and then they were going to do it at the end of the half, but then they were like, look, it's too close of a game. We can't risk the run back. So we're not going to do it. But
yeah, you got to be prepared for that too. If you go
like a block or a run back, you're just like, we don't want to do it.
That's true. And the block is also very likely because the trajectory of the kick has got to be start off relatively low. No, that's a good point. All right, let's. You know what? I want to get to. Let's talk about the Texans a little bit. I think we can do this because I feel we may need more time to talk about the Texans, but honestly, they're not deserving of us giving them too much time. This was a terrible performance by Texans. Let me just start off saying this, and I talked about this. It was my number one factor in who's going to win this game. I was like, man, they got to be good on first down so they can have manageable third downs. I was like, the Texans end up in third and long against this Brian Flores defense. Man, it's gonna be a long day. Like it's just that's when his defense is at its best, and that's usually when the odds flip in favor of the defense anyway. But his defense, it gets more exotic, it gets freakier, it gets more I think complicated and sophisticated on third downs. And the Texans, third downs. And I said to stay out of third and long. Third and long is technically 3rd and 7+. They had 16 third downs. I'm not joking. I counted like 13. I counted 13 third and longs with the Texans. I'm not joking. Here, I'll read them all to you. They was 3rd and 7, and then that was 3rd and 10, and then that was 3rd and 11. That was just on the second drive of the game. And then on the next drive, they were 3rd and 7, and that ended up being a penalty. So it's 3rd and 12. And then on the next drive, 3rd and 12. And then they went into 3rd and 19 because they had 3rd and 14, but they had a penalty. It goes on and on. It goes on like that all damn game. So basically 13 out of their 16 third downs were third and longs. And I was like, that's the one situation they can't be in against Minnesota. And that's why, they were 6 of 16. They actually did better than I thought on the third and longs. They were 6 of 16 on 4 of 14 on third and longs. They were 2 of 4 on fourth downs. They were 4 of 14 on third downs. They were 2 of 4 overall on fourth down. So overall on money downs, I should say, they were 6 of 16 on money downs, third and fourth downs, which is around 37% or something. Not good enough to win. And that to me was one of their biggest issues. And a lot of their third and longs were because of penalties, because they were undisciplined. Remember last season, I told you guys, they were the most penalized team in the NFL on the road. Nobody had more penalties on the road than the Texans. And they were on the road versus Minnesota, and they looked like an undisciplined team on the road, and penalties came back to haunt them a ton. They had multiple drives that essentially were killed because of pre-snap penalties. 3 of their first 6 drives were killed because of offensive line pre-snap penalties. Laremy Tunsil currently has 10 through the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The next closest old lineman has 5. He's got 10.
Yeah,
he's got 4 third down false starts.
And then he had illegal procedures too.
Yeah.
Where he lined up too far back, which that rule is getting to be one of the most annoying rules in football. I get you want to make the impact, and they're calling everywhere, but you're like, this just sucks. Because it's like, and it's only certain teams that are getting them. It's like, just every single game you see it in, one team gets it like 6 times and the other team doesn't get any. And you're like, what is going on? How one guy cannot figure this out? It's like one dude is
like, are y'all talking to him on the sideline? What's happening here?
This is it. It's one of those things when we talk about the league wanting to make the game better. Like, hey, ref, tell him to lean forward. You
ain't got to penalize him every time.
Well, it's just like when we're on penalty 4 of this, can we try and get the game to move here? And I get it. If I'm on the other team, I'm loving it. But at the same fact, I'm like, this is really boring that we have to keep stopping this and pushing it back. But
I'm not sure they even understand the penalty. I don't even understand the rule. I'm with you. Like, do the players understand the rule?
Like, I don't think they know how to look across. And the whole reality of it is you're basically looking across and lining up, and then you lean back a little bit, and now you're to penalty. So you lean forward, you're in. So when you set up and looked, you were fine. And then you lean back, and your helmet is no longer at the belt line of the center anymore. And it's that ticky-tack of a penalty that gets called. And it's just it sucks. But that play, it was like the drive in the second quarter where it was they got the ball to start they started off in the second quarter, they had the ball, and Texans drive down and they get it to like the 25, something like that. And that's when they get the 3 straight false starts.
Yeah, brutal.
And that was the one where he said it's 14-0, but if they score on this drive, momentum shifts back. They had stopped they stopped the Vikings. It felt like maybe we can get a few stops there. We can go and and the Texans can move the ball forward. And finally, this will get working. They'll score and everything goes. They get penalty after penalty. The crowd, who is getting taken out of it a little bit, is now fully back in it because they feel they just got 3 false starts. Then you get a play that works and you get an illegal procedure and it gets called back again. And so you lose 20 yards on penalties. You have to punt the ball off. It's just ridiculous how that went. Yeah. And that one felt like they could have swung the game back to the Texans having a shot in it. And when they didn't do that, they punt for the rest. Both teams punt for the rest of the half. So it wasn't like the Vikings offense was still doing well at that. You could have scored and then, maybe gotten the ball back again with a little bit more momentum, put up and it's tied at half, or at least 10-7 at half at least. And that was really kind of from that point on, it just felt like the Texans offense was so exasperated by CJ Stroud's like, the offensive line sucks. I hate every one of these guys right now. You're getting no presents for Christmas. Offensive line, you guys are terrible. And then it did not seem to be working out anywhere. The run game was nothing. No Dameon Pierce, no Joe Mixon. Yeah. Cam Akers was not able to get it going. It was bad.
And we talked about the pass protection issues that the Texans had versus Indy. And they came back to haunt you versus Minnesota. Texans allowed 30 total individual pressures across 23 total dropbacks. Vikings pressure rate, 44%. There's a 44% pressure rate. So it was constant. And I'm not going to lie, CJ Stroud struggled versus the blitz. And I love me some CJ Stroud, but there's no doubt after they blitzed him on, and they switched it up. They basically blitzed him over half of his dropbacks in the first half. So they were at 54% blitz rate in the first half. And then in the second half, they dialed it back and they sent a blitz on just 27% of his dropbacks. But it didn't matter. I mean, he struggled versus the blitz and really couldn't ever really decipher what Brian Flores was trying to do. And it was all because, like you said, the pre-snap penalties, they ended up in 3rd and long way too much. Not just 3rd and 7, 3rd like double digits.
Yep. Because you would get to 3rd and 7, and then you get a false start, and then it's 3rd and 12.
3rd and 11. Yeah, 3rd and 12. Yeah, you're right.
Like exactly that. Right. It just happened so many times in that game. It's and it's you're not dead in the water for the Texans because these are all fixable problems. These are mental issues. These are just dumb plays, and you're shooting yourself in the foot in a lot of this. You got killed in this game. Yes, the secondary. But so much of this was mental errors that it's not quite the same as the Cowboys, where you just go, well, you're very lacking at this one position. The Texans have the players on the roster right now. They're just not executing. And D'Amico's going to have to figure that out. Bobby Slowick's got to figure out a way to manufacture something on early downs.
Yes, first downs.
But these are things that are fixable throughout. I mean, I think it puts you a year behind the schedule where you thought you were as a team, because this is now a team that you can still make the playoffs. You can still win the division, but you're not a Super Bowl team right now. You're not close. You're not close to it. You're not beating the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So, those are the types of things you have to go figure out. But, you're still not in a terrible position. But, yeah, these are things. I mean, I'd love to see what D'Amico has to try and do in practice to be like, dude, hey, every time you run, every time in practice, and I'm bringing in refs.
It starts with Tunsil. With Tunsil. Like your top guy, like you got to make an example out of him. You paid him. You got to start with him. It's crazy that he's got 10 penalties already in 2024. It's unacceptable. All right. Good stuff there. We come back. We'll get into Rod's rant. We'll discuss the opening, the introduction, if you will, Longhorn fans had to Arch Manning. We'll talk about that. I made some predictions about how the offense might be modified, how it would change with Arch Manning at the helm. We'll track that and see where I am on some of those predictions that I made about the offense and Arch Manning. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's get back to some Texas football conversation. Talk about the first start for Arch Manning, and based on the small sample size that we had seen from Arch in the Colorado State game, you saw a little bit of Arch. You saw a little bit of him, of course, when Quinn went down that UTSA game. And I made some predictions about what the offense would like, some slight tweaks you would see from the offense with Arch as the starting quarterback, as opposed to Quinn Ewers. The first thing that I said you're going to see more of is more verticality in the offense, right? You're going to see more shots downfield. I did not think they would throw deep 20 deep balls. I'm sorry, 10 deep balls. 10 deep balls, 10 balls of 20 yards or more. That's basically what is considered a deep ball by Pro Football Focus standards. So they threw 10 passes of 20 yards or more down the field, connected on 3 of those 10 passes. And that's where a lot of the inefficiency numbers for Arch Manning are. If you look at completion percentage, he was a little bit over 50%. A lot of it, honestly, was on deep balls and targets to Jaden Blue. He was 1 of 7 targeting Jaden Blue. He was 3 of 10 on deep passes. He had 14 incompletions. That's it right there. And I honestly, 2 of the deep passes were to 2 of the deep incompletions were to Jaden Blue, because they were this wheel route. Remember that wheel concept they kept throwing? And Jaden Blue was open on like 3 of those actually, and they just couldn't connect on them. They just didn't have the timing. They didn't have the chemistry. So if they fix his issue with Jaden Blue, because Jaden Blue is such a highly targeted player, and they curtail the deep balls, or more, judicious about when they throw the deep balls, kind of instead of chasing the big play, let the big play come naturally. And Sark admitted that was part of the game plan. They wanted to exploit the safeties for ULM. They thought that was a weakness. So that was part of the game plan. But I don't remember them throwing that many deep balls in the first half of the game. It was 8 deep balls in the first half. The last time I remember them throwing that many deep balls may have been Oklahoma State. At Oklahoma State, Quinn Ewers, remember? And the wind was swirling. Quinn, turns out, had a messed up throwing hand, and Xavier Worthy had a broken hand too, and they were just chunking it deep, and we were like, what is happening? That was the first sight of Coach Steven. We were like, let's go. Who's that dude? Let's go, Steven. That's just chunking it deep. What the hell kind of game plan is that? And thank God we don't see Coach Steven that much anymore. All right. Sark is the guy we love. He's the man that's going to bring a championship to Texas. Coach Steven, don't know who that guy is. But yeah, so they were very stubborn about the deep ball, and Sark has since become very disciplined about taking deep shots. Matter of fact, they don't take as many deep shots in the Texas offense as they used to when Sark first got here, because I don't think that's something that he doesn't necessarily see that as a strength. And I don't think it's a strength of Quinn. They did reveal in the broadcast that Sark believes it's a strength of Arch, that he has a better deep ball than Quinn. So they've been throwing more deep balls. So all the metrics, the ADOT, air yards, yards per attempt, yards per completion, all of that pointed to Arch wants to throw it downfield more. And they're going to do it with Arch. They did. Like I said, I didn't think they would do it that much, but that was something that also I saw as a potential modification within the offense. Less pre-snap motion, as we've talked about ad nauseum on this show. Pre-snap motion is one of the top 3 most effective cheat codes and hacks in all of football. It just works. It's like Sex Panther. 6% of the time, it works every time. Right? It works. It works. It improves passer rating. It improves yards per attempt. It improves yards per rush, yards per completion, completion percentage, you name it. Everything you pretty much identify as a marker for a successfully efficient offense improves when you use pre-snap motion. And Sark's a big fan of it. It's a conceptual signature of Sark's offense. Well, it's more like a vital sign, I consider, of Sark's offense. When in big games, you get more pre-snap motion in Sark's offense, more targets to motion, which is targeting a player who was in motion prior to the snap or at the time of the snap. But I said you'd get less of that with Arch. At least that was the case in the UTSA game. It was around 54% pre-snap motion, which is pretty close to the average with Sark. He's around 55%. I have advocated he should be closer to 70%, 80%. That's what some of the best offenses in the NFL are. That's where your Kyle Shanahan is, your Sean McVay, Detroit, Kansas City, the best offense in Miami in the NFL. They're 65 to 70 to 80% pre-snap motion rate. But I digress. Sark's average around 55%. And with Quinn in the UTSA game, that's right around where they were. But when Arch went in, it dropped to around 45%. In this game versus ULM, also you're below 45% of your pre-snap motion rate. This is a lot for a young quarterback to keep up with, a lot for him to navigate. It's got to be, the timing's got to be right. They had a fumble snap even in this game. Timing's got to be right for that. And working with some new players, right? The first team as opposed to working with the second team guys. I just don't think Sark wanted to put that much on his young quarterback. So I predicted you'd have a drop in pre-snap motion and shift rates, and you certainly did there. Also, I predicted you would move the pocket more. I was wrong, but they didn't move the pocket as much as I thought. I thought they'd move the pocket a lot more. They did. The touchdown to Jaden Blue was moving the pocket. They tried on the first play of the game, actually was a flood concept with a kind of designed half roll out to the boundary. So they tried that to be the first completion, which has been the first completion in the last 3 appearances that we've seen from Arch. It's been a flood concept with a design rollout, but they didn't complete it. It was an incompletion on that pass, but they rolled them out a little bit, but not as much as I thought. I said play action pass, RPO, and screen rate. The deception-based passing tactics would remain the same, right? That would be relatively consistent, and it was. I mean, he was about 60% screen and play action pass rate. RPO thrown in there, you'll probably get 65%. So that's usually where Sark's offense is when it comes to RPO, screen, and play action pass rate, around 65%. So that remained relatively consistent. I said you get more targets for Cook and Wingo. Wingo, I think, got more looks. I think he got 4 targets in the game. I believe Jonte Cook only got 2. So kind of half right on that, because those guys work with him more on the second team. Those are the guys that he has developed in the system with. Thought he'd have more chemistry with them. And I don't know if he did that. He spread the ball around pretty good. He wasn't necessarily reliant on just 1 or 2 guys. Early game pass down rate. Remember I talked about this early game, down pass rate with Quinn. You had been hovering, between, you got to 58%, 60%. Hell, you were close to 70% in that UTSA game, an early game, early down pass rate before Quinn goes down. Remember, the first 9 plays of the game were passes, and then they handed it off on the 10th play of the game. So Sark was really comfortable with his third-year starting quarterback being a pass-first offense, which I've talked about. That's going to be your identity this year, right? The pass needs to open up the run. The run game will complement the pass. Well, with a young quarterback like Arch, you don't want to overburden him, right? Just like the pre-snap motion thing. So they want to have more balance in the offense, and that was certainly the case in this matchup. I think they were around, you were below 55% early game, early down pass rate, probably having around 53%. And that's, I think Sark wants to lead with the pass, but not when you have a freshman quarterback out there and you don't necessarily want to put him in harm's way too much, but also you don't want to put too much on their plate too fast. And I think that's why you had a higher run rate than you usually would too. So also something that I predicted you'd have more balance in the offense. That's the case as well. You didn't have the screen game that I predicted that Sark would implement with Arch in there. And you know what I think it is? Arch is not necessarily great at that. Layering and feathering is probably the right term. Those screen throws. Right, him and Jaden Blue were off on some of those short, really quick throws. I don't know if he's as good as Quinn is at putting those screen passes on the money where you can have the opportunity for yak yards. I think he was a little off in those, and maybe that's something they got to work on, because I thought you'd see more screens, right? More of the bubble screens that Isaiah Bond scored on the 50-yarder. See more of those. See more tunnel screens. See more. I think running back screens, seeing the throwback screen. Like, we haven't seen the screen package, very sophisticated screen package, be unveiled. And that's also something that could help a young quarterback. And I think it's because Arch isn't necessarily great yet at making those throws. They seem easy, but they're a little bit more difficult than you would think. Just putting them in the right place in terms of ball placement. So at the receiver, running back, receiver, even a tight end screen, right? We haven't seen tight end screen. Sark loves the tight end screen. Haven't seen a tight end screen much, this year, but I thought we'd see more screen game with Arch in there as a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And we didn't. I think it's got to be something to that.
I think also we saw it a few times. It wasn't the whole game, but he didn't look off receivers very well. Like, he kind of stared down guys at points. And if you're going to stare down screens, that's trouble. And so there may be a part they're a little worried about. He's going to back up, immediately look at the screen, and the play is going to get blown up immediately because everyone will run to the screen. Yeah. So
that's not a bad. Yeah.
I could believe that along with what you're saying, just a couple pieces Sark saw in practice and said, let's not put him in that situation.
Yep. I can see there's a reason that right, because screens you would think, oh, that's a safe high percentage throw, and we didn't see a lot of screens in that game. All right, so it's got to be a reason for it. Sark would know. All right, those were some of my predictions. I was right on some of them, and I was off on others. So we'll get back to talking about Steve Sarkisian and his impression of Arch's first start versus ULM. But when we come back, let's get into what the facts, what the stats. Got a bunch of those to share with you from the college realm and from the NFL world. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for what the stats here on the Rodcast. All right, I was just doing some research on the Jaden Blue because I was trying to figure out, all right, where is he among targets and rushes? So he's leading the team in rushes. He's got 45 rushes on the season, even though he missed a game. And missed a game, he's second in targets. He's one target behind Isaiah Bond. So, if he had played every game, he'd be leading you in rushes and leading you in targets right now. There's no doubt he is the catalyst of the offense. It all runs through Jaden Blue, like pretty much. And that's since I don't know if Texas has been here with a running back in a while, ever actually. I don't remember being with her. I mean, maybe Bijan, but remember your targets. That was a lot of that target share. I got to go look and see Bijan's target share per game, but I feel like the offense was very different then. I feel like you were funding a lot to X-Man and those, and you're funding a lot obviously in their passing game now. But we'll see. I mean, it's right now. It just seems like, remember you had Rojo back then too, and Rojo would play a lot, and Rojo had his role in the backfield, and you still are trying to have other guys fill in their roles on the team. But I don't know. It feels like Jaden Blue right now is becoming kind of like I said, the catalyst for it all offensively. Like nobody can really do what he does. And Sark's showcasing him. Ain't no doubt about that. All right. Another factoid here. How about this one? Cowboys. There's more stuff about their rushing defense. The Cowboys allowed all last season, they allowed 5 rushing touchdowns at home. They've already allowed 7 rushing touchdowns at home. They allowed 5 all of last season. They've already allowed 7. It's not good. It's not a good sign for that Cowboys defense overall. Another factoid here. This is about Patrick Mahomes. How about this one? Actually, let's go NFL unders. NFL unders are now 27, 18, and 1 this season. Through 3 weeks, that would be the second best mark for unders in the last 20 years. So NFL unders, which makes sense, right? Passing efficiency is down, passing touchdowns are down, explosive plays via the passing game are down. So, so teams aren't scoring as much. So NFL unders are hitting at a record rate, 60% through 3 weeks, the second best mark for unders in the last 20 years. There you go. I was trying to make you some money if we can before Vegas figures it out. All right, let's get to the break here. That's what the fact. Oh, how about this? The Cowboys defense in the first half of the last 2 weeks, 28 first downs allowed, 582 yards allowed, 56 points allowed for the Cowboys in the first half of the last 2 weeks. They essentially been out of the game and had, based on their poor defense the last 2 weeks, they really haven't been able to even play complimentary football, keep themselves in the game. So Cowboys got to figure out something on defense. And they got to do it fast. All right, we come back. We'll get into more Texas football discussion. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian. We go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk about their win over ULM, what we thought of the first start for Arch Manning, and we'll get into the growing pains and also the flashes of brilliance we saw from Arch Manning. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. Oh, yes, a smooth soul Monday, courtesy of my co-host Patrick Davis. That's when he plays jams intended to soothe what is at times the tortured soul of a lot of sports fans whose team may have had a tough weekend, but also for anybody who is shocked a little bit by the traumatic Monday that we all have to deal with after a fun-filled, stress-free weekend. It can be very tough to jump into a work week with all the meetings and traffic and everything else. So Patrick wants to make that transition as smooth as possible for you. And that's the purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday. So we appreciate Patrick. We appreciate him also for coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. What is the topic, Patrick, for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day. Who is the MVP for Texas against ULM? Right now, Jaden Blue running away with it. It's not even remotely close. 78% of the vote for Jaden Blue right now. Arch Manning with 5%. Anthony Hill's got 9%. And Leon Lafau with 7%. And shout out to the Anderson football page up there for throwing in Colin Page.
I like that. Represent, baby. Yeah, I like that. Good for them. Yeah, Colin, I'm telling you, he looked good.
He did, man. It was fun watching him run.
Good. He's got good vision. I will say that, like he's got pretty good vision for a running back. And like I said, I saw him break. I think he broke like 2 or 3 runs, like explosive runs in that game. So good for Colin Page. I'm glad he's getting some love. The coaches obviously think he's earned it because I thought they'd put in what's the kid, Velton Gardner.
Yeah.
But looks like Colin Page is considered only still on the depth chart to be higher up than Velton Gardner. So shout out to him. Colin Page doing a good job.
10 yards for 10 carries for 60 yards for Colin Page.
6 yards a pop.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Led the team in yards per carry.
Oh, did he really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because Jaden Blue was only 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jaden Blue, I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, nobody saw him getting 25 rushes. I still don't know what Sark was trying to prove. I think it was just, I think ultimately, like you said, there was an injury to Jerry Gibson at 1.2. So I think that might have, changed the plan. He did have a week to rest because he didn't play versus UTSA. So he had a week to get totally healthy. So maybe that added to it. And maybe he wanted to showcase that, if Texas needs to, that we can saddle up and run the football. And everybody's now, because of the CJ Baxter injury, Texas doesn't have a workhorse running back. They don't have a lead back. And maybe he wants to put everybody like, no. If we need to, Jaden Blue can be that guy. Like, he can be our lead back. If we need him to run the ball 20 sometimes a game, we can do it. Going into SEC play, that is not a deficiency for us. It is, the way we operate is out of preference, not because of necessity. That if we want to run the rock with Jaden Blue, we can do that. Because that was that Jaden Blue drive. Remember, there was a 66-yard touchdown drive where Jaden Blue had like 64 out of the 66 yards. It just gave to Jaden Blue. Just hand him the rock. And I think that's the drive. I believe it's the third quarter, so I believe it was after halftime. Where because remember, Sark wasn't happy at halftime. He wasn't necessarily happy because I think he wanted Texas to assert itself, especially on the offensive line, a little bit more. Remember that ULM front was making some plays.
Yeah.
Against Texas. They were getting in the backfield, penetrating a little bit. And I think that was Sark. I think he challenged that O-line in that third quarter and said, hey, can you guys impose your will? If we just want to come out here and run the football, I think they had one pass on that drive. And I believe it was that the roughing the passer? I got to go back and check and see. But I think they had one pass on that 66-yard Jaden Blue drive. Essentially, I think that was Sark challenging the O-line. Like, hey, guys, if we need to go impose our will, we're about to head into SEC play next week. If we need to impose our will on the opponent and play bully ball, can we do it? And that drive showed that they could do it when they wanted to put their mind to it. And it was all Jaden Blue running the rock. Inside zone. Remember, Sark was like, we will. Remember he said during the offseason, we will run inside zone.
Yeah.
Quit asking me about it. We will run inside zone. Just because we lost CJ Baxter don't mean we ain't gonna run.
We will, and we can, and we will.
And I think that's what that was about. That drive was about. And maybe that's what Jaden Blue getting 25 carries. Maybe that's what it was about. Like, hey, now we can run the rock. We're about to head to the SEC and into SEC play. We need to reaffirm our commitment to being able to run the rock. But Jaden Blue, man, 25 rushes, 7 targets. So I went back and did the research because I figured it looks different to me. I watch these damn games multiple times. Nobody's watching more film than I do other than the coaches. Coaches are watching more film than me, but nobody else really. because it's just, why would you? Right? Why would you put yourself through it? That's torture. Just listen to me. I'll give you the details. Bijan never had more than 6 targets in a game in 2022. He had one game in 2021 where he had over 6 targets, and that was versus Iowa State. Is it? So in 2 years, he had, on this in-Sark system, in 2 years, he had one game where he had over 6 targets. Now I would say Jonathan Brooks, Jay Brooks had 2 games where he had at least 6 targets. He had 6 versus U of H. 6 versus Oklahoma. I think 8 versus U of H. But Jaden Blue, guys, every game so far this season, he's had at least 6 targets that he's played in. He's second on the team right now in targets. Bijan had 29 total targets in 2022. I think he had 31 in 2021. Jay Brooks had 29 total targets in 2023. Guys, Jaden Blue already got 19 of them already. He's got 19 in 3 games. It feels different. It is different. The way he's using Jaden Blue, it is different. He's second on your team in targets. He's 1 target behind Isaiah Bond, who's leading the team in targets. If he had played every game, he'd be leading you in targets right now. And he's leading you in rushes. So it feels different because it is different, the way they're using Jaden Blue. And like you said, Patrick, maybe this is it. It's like, hey, showcase me, babe. I'm going to the league. So show all the NFL scouts I can do it all, and I'm gone.
Hey, I mean, you talk about when they recruit these running backs, they keep saying, man, look at what we've produced. No one thought that, we had Bijan. Everybody knew Bijan was going to be great. People didn't think Jonathan Brooks was going to be the first running back taken. People didn't think Jaden Blue was going to be able to handle we're going to go put him in and show you. It's like, when you come to Texas, we'll develop you into
showcase you.
Yeah. And we'll showcase you, and we'll develop you into a NFL running back.
Yeah. No, it is. It's amazing. And I keep thinking about this. When I gave you guys this stat earlier, the 30-40 club. I made this up, but it's in my mind, it's real. This is basically people who can, offensive players who can meet the statistical criteria of at least 30 rushes and 40 receptions in the same season. And you would think, oh man, that should be pretty easy. It actually isn't. On average, you get about maybe 15 or fewer guys who can accomplish this in the FBS per year, like per season. Like, it's just not a lot of guys that can do it. Matter of fact, at Texas, the last player to be in my 30-40 club was Chris Obanaya in 2008. And before him, it was Eric Metcalf, going back to 1988 before him. So basically every 20 years or so, you get one of these types of players. And Jaden Blue might be that guy. Like, he really may be. He may be the next guy, because he is, if he stays healthy, he's trending toward being in my 30-40 club. At least 30 rushes. He's already there, but at least 40 receptions. Now, he's got to pick up the reception thing, but he's getting the targets for it. He had 7 targets in his last game, but only 1 reception. Now, it was a touchdown, but I need him to get more receptions. Now, he had a drop, but him and Arch got to get on the same page. But if Texas plays in the SEC title game and plays in the college football playoff and makes a run there, I think he's got a shot to be in my 30-40 club. Yeah. So what's happening with Jaden Blue is pretty special right now. Just acknowledging that. All right. So let's get to the Horn headlines first. Let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top story today. Then we'll come back and discuss the first start for Arch Manning, the unveiling of Arch Manning, the sneak peek at the future of Texas football. But first, Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series with the Angels over the weekend, 3-1. Jose Altuve reached his 3rd career 2020 season, while Yordan Alvarez left Sunday's game early after injuring his knee while sliding into second base. The Astros now move on to a series with the Mariners and can clinch the division and a playoff berth with 1 win in the series. The Rangers dropped their series to the Mariners over the weekend, but played spoiler with a walk-off single by Marcus Semien in the bottom of the 9th to dampen Seattle's playoff hopes. The Rangers will take the day off before heading to Oakland for the final A's series in the Oakland Coliseum. In college football, the Texas Longhorns finished up non-conference play with a 51-3 win over Louisiana Monroe on Saturday. Arch Manning threw for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns in his starting debut, but also had 2 picks in the game, while Jaden Blue returned from injury to tally 124 rushing yards and 4 total TDs. Elsewhere, Michigan toppled USC 27-24 with a late scoring drive. Utah got a 22-19 win over Oklahoma State. Tennessee had no problem beating Oklahoma 25-15. And the biggest upset of the weekend, BYU took down number 13 Kansas State 38-9. After 4 weeks of action, Texas remains in the number 1 spot in the AP poll. And in the NFL, the Texans got embarrassed by the Vikings 34-7 with C.J. Stroud throwing 2 interceptions and Houston only racking up 38 rushing yards in the game. And the Cowboys tried to rally late with 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns, but still lose to the Ravens 28-25. Baltimore rushed for 274 yards in the game, with Derrick Henry having 3 total touchdowns. Tonight, the Jaguars face the Bills, and the Commanders take on the Bengals, and that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. We appreciate those. All right, let's get to, we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian and his first impression of Arch Manning getting his first start versus ULM. I'll just say this, because some people are disappointed, mixed reviews on Arch's first start. Some people are disappointed. And I told you guys on Friday, you need to manage your expectations, because your 5 touchdowns in 29 plays, it really has some folks out there. All right. Some folks out there with had triggered some very unrealistic expectations for Arch. Not that Arch is not going to be great. Not that he's, going to live up to expectations. I believe he's going to do all those things. I would put money on him to win the Heisman in a couple of years, but he's still a freshman, as I said. And freshmen are inconsistent. They flash brilliance, especially the prodigies, and he's a prodigy. They flash brilliance, but also they're teachable moments. They're going to be growing pains. And I said it was inevitable, and you're going to have them versus ULM. And I told you guys that the defense they got some players. They got a couple of players on the defense that have made some plays. They got some guys. Now, would they be able to hang with Texas? Of course not. But I told you, they got enough playmakers on defense to make some things difficult for a freshman quarterback, which they did. All right. And not forgetting Ernest Hills, the defensive coordinator. I'm sure he was pumped up about that. I didn't even get to see how he reacted to some of those interceptions and big plays his defense made. But if you didn't expect some of those growing pains, then that's on you. I mean, he's still a freshman. I always say it's about freshmen. You get the highs and the lows, right? What you don't have is a consistent baseline. All right. Consistent baseline of performance. And you're not going to get that from Arch in his first year or his first few starts, right? It's going to take a while. He needs those lessons. He needs those growing pains, those coachable, teachable moments. And so I have no problem with what I saw. I actually thought he looked really good, because I expected him to flash brilliance, all right, and also have those WTF moments. That's the reality of a young quarterback. And then over time, he will keep the high ceiling, so he'll keep flashing that brilliance you see, but he won't have the basement. He'll still have the really high ceiling, but his basement won't be as deep. So you won't see the place where he bottoms out as a player, which that's what you have with Quinn right now, right? We remember Quinn as a young player. Flash, matter of fact, Quinn's first pass versus ULM, which was one of his first, it was an interception versus ULM. Because Quinn used to also at times try to force the issue, and then you have to learn, which I think the biggest lesson for Arch coming out of the game, take what the defense is giving you early on. Just take what they're giving you, and then after a while, you'll be able to exploit, vulnerabilities within the defense, because they'll adjust to try to take away the 6-7 yard underneath throw or the check down. And I think for Arch, he'll learn that over time. Like, that's nothing. Some quarterbacks almost feel like defeated when they take a check down or when they take it underneath or take what the defense is giving them. And they don't realize, like, no, that's a win. You're not defeated. That's a win for the offense. Positive yards, moving change. That's a win, because they want to chase the big play. And you can tell in that game, he was chasing the big play, constantly chasing the big play. And that was part of the game plan. But also for him, there are times where he wasn't necessarily even going through natural progressions, and the footwork and the mechanics and the pocket presence all would deteriorate, all for the sake of, I got to get that play, that big play. I'm chasing that big play. And that's the coachable moment for me. It's like, take what the defense is giving you. Don't chase the big plays. They'll come naturally. You don't have to chase him. And I think early on, through the interception, that was a primary example of him chasing the big play. And to me, that was also an example of him, instead of being coachable, he was being more robotic. And Sark has talked about this, right? The reason that he stared down that receiver and that he was so insistent upon that read in that progression, even though Jaden Blue was wide open on the backside, wide open on the wheel route on the backside, is because in practice, he was either told that was going to be open, or in practice, it was always open. Because remember, that was on the script. That was early on in the game. That was on the script. So that was one of the plays that they had gone through in practice all week long. And Arch had been thinking that guy's going to be open, or that guy will be open. Or Sark probably told him, hey, this is your primary. This guy's going to be open. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Rita Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but is that Sark also mentions, and a lot of the great coaches do, my man Shannon has a great quote about it, be coachable, don't be a robot. I can't go out there and solve the problem for you. I assume it's going to go this way. I call a play believing, that the defense will adjust and the defense will react a certain way. But if they don't, and what I coached you up on doesn't apply, well, go be an athlete. Go be a football player. Don't be a robot. Don't say, coach said it would be open, so I'm throwing it. Coach said it was open. It's like, no. Was it open? No. There were 3 ULM players over there. So it ended up being an interception. So I think that was another lesson you'll learn. Be coachable. Don't be a robot. And even Sark has talked about, we have to, at times with Arch, allow him to let us play freely with his instincts. And so he's not so robotic. And I think at that time, that was a robotic play. Even though he showcased his elite athleticism, being able to dodge the sack and evade the pressure, he just stared down the receiver and was stubborn. I'm going to this guy. And it's like, well, okay. But the defense also knows that. And they got 3 guys over there. And, if you go through your progressions naturally, or even, I think he was also discouraged to run. So he probably didn't want to run there either. Probably would have ran if he wasn't discouraged. But that was a primary example of him chasing the big play. He really wanted that big play. And he got a couple of them. And that was part of the game plan. But ultimately, he needs to learn to take, the short underneath throws a little bit more and be more patient. And it's hard for young players to be patient. That's the young players like Arch Manning. So I have no problem with what I saw. Some people were upset about it. I expected him to have those moments. And I still think he conducted himself pretty well. Let's hear from Sark about Arch Manning's first start. And here's Sark's first impression of his young quarterback.
We went into the game plan that we felt like we had to be a little bit aggressive down the field with the style of play that they were getting, and he took his shots, and we hit him, and we missed a couple. Right, we had one. Silas Boldham, I thought, made a great catch. They overturn it. He won off the fingertips of Jaden Blue up the sidelines. Another, couple other contested catches, I think, with Wingo and Isaiah downfield. So when you get into that mode a little bit, sometimes you can start to get a little bit greedy. And that's a challenging thing, especially a guy making his first career start, because you feel like you're just hitting them and you want to keep hitting those things. And so, to be fair to him, I maybe should have found some other just kind of completions in there to keep his rhythm. I thought we kind of did that there at the end of the third quarter. He hit a slant, hit a couple kind of simpler type throws, because I'd like that completion percentage to be a little higher than it was tonight. But the game plan was a little bit big, little in that way. And then when it's set that way, when those shots aren't there, having the ability to check the ball down, I think that's something that he'll see there's more value in some of those. Instead of throwing up that post, maybe check it down to the running back and create plays that way. But hey, learning lessons, right? I mean, that's to think he was going to come out and play a perfect game. I don't think anybody in here thought that. I thought he was going to prepare really well, work really hard, do everything he could to play good football. He was going to have some lessons learned, and I think that's what tonight was about.
One of the things that I liked about Arch's performance, because I expected the struggles, and I expected him to have those moments where he looks like a freshman. you got to have the ability to bounce back, though, right? You got to have the ability to persevere through those trials and tribulations, overcome the adversity as a quarterback. Don't let it lead to a downward spiral. There are times where a young quarterback, one bad play leads to another bad play, and then leads to another bad play, and they seem to start spiraling out of control. That never happened with Arch. He had the bad play, he had the pick, right? And had the other pick, and had some plays or at least some drives where he looked, his pocket presence looked a little bit off, and maybe his footwork and mechanics were off, and that led to some errant throws. But I never saw him spiral. I always saw, the ability to bounce back, the ability to persevere through the trials and the tribulations, through the adversity. That's important for a quarterback. Because quarterbacks don't have that early on. Some quarterbacks, they let one mistake haunt them and lead to another. He seemed to overcome his mistakes and move on to the next play. And here's Sark talking about that. Sark's a quarterback too, so he understands that. You can't spiral as a quarterback. You can't. Yeah, I call it quicksand. A guy, you have one bad play and then you start trying really hard, and the more you struggle, it seems like the deeper you sink. And I didn't see that from Arch, even though there were the low points in his performance. So here's Sark talking about the bounce back factor and how you saw Arch bounce back from some of those bad moments and some of those lapses in judgment versus ULM.
Well, I mean, I'd like to hope that that's something that we really try to preach around here for all of our players, and that, we have a next play mentality. And I think you struggle in our program when you don't, and because in practice you can get exposed. And so I don't think the Arch we saw today in dealing with some of those negative plays was the same guy we saw a year ago at this time, and so he has grown a ton, and that takes a lot of maturity to get that done. I think he's got a really good guy to watch in Quinn, because Quinn has evolved that way as well. But again, I was very proud of him tonight, because, hey, interceptions happen, like that's part of the life of being a quarterback. Hopefully over time they start to get reduced. How he responds to those and then continues to move the offense is really important. And he did a good job of that tonight.
I thought he did a good job too. I'm sure some people out there were a little disappointed because they expected the 5 touchdowns in the 29 plays. That is in him. He's capable of that. There's no question. But that was the flash of brilliance. And what I brought up on Friday was that usually if it's a flash of brilliance, it don't last 29 plays like it did for him. That was what made that unique. Usually, hey, he may do that in 10 plays, but 29 plays of it didn't seem like there was a letdown at all. There was a sack in the UTSA game. I guess that was a bit of a growing pain for him, or a teachable moment, but there weren't many. And that was the surprising thing, is that at that point there were like 1 or 2 teachable moments the entire night for him. That's rare for a freshman. Usually a freshman, there's like, I don't know, half the damn tape is a teachable moment. That's what we saw versus ULM. It was like half his snaps, like, oh, that's something to teach there. Yeah, look at the footwork. Look at the pocket presence there. Yeah, you're a little bit off. Probably could have taken a check down there. That's ULM is how it's supposed to look. I know people are upset with that, but that actually is how it's supposed to look. And you'll see if he starts for Mississippi State, we don't know. But if he does, you'll see. But whenever his next start is, you'll see exponential growth from start 1 to start 2 for him. That usually happens for prodigies like Arch Manning, no matter who he goes up against, whether it's an SEC foe or someone else, it doesn't matter. So Patrick, I don't know what your thoughts are, but like I said, I genuinely was pleased with what I saw from Arch, even though he had the struggles. Those are struggles I expected.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the way I equated earlier is I think it was like a minor league pitcher taking a start where you're not necessarily going out there giving it I got to win the World Series game. You're going, I'm working on some things. So they're not running, being told, work on your pocket presence. The fact they didn't roll him out as much and move the pocket around as much, I think there was a lot of stuff they were working on him with. And then you found the things you have to work on, where you do have to work on actually going through your progressions and not just falling in love with that first option, even if it's not open. You do have to work on, looking off of your receivers a little bit better at points. He had one, I remember, across that was an out route that he threw the ball hard, to where it was, in which made it where it was inside. It was outside shoulder. He threw it a little bit short. But if he really put that pass where it needed to be caught, it would have been picked off, and it was a pick six going the other way.
I remember that play. Yeah, I remember that.
But he kind of jetted it because he knew he was going to try and force it in there, and the receiver was going to have to make a big play to catch it. Those types of things where you're like, you don't need to make that play. That's not the right play. Because it is, you are making it to where your receiver either has to have a great catch or it's a pick. Those are probably not the ones you need to make, especially when you're playing a team where you know there's going to be somebody else open on the field. Or you can go run for 5 yards, or you can throw it away and you can go get on the next one. There was a few plays like that you saw, but the way in the minor leagues when you're pitching, they'll go, okay, no curveball today. You have a really good curveball, but we don't want you to throw it anymore. We want you to work on some of your other pitches. That's what I felt like they were doing with Arch a little bit, is you had that ability in this game to say, Arch, we don't want you to run. We want you to get a little bit better pocket presence. We want to see what you do in these situations, because right now you're so talented and these teams aren't going to be able to keep up with you, that we're never going to find out if you can make that throw or how you're going to read the team if you have to be put in that situation, because you can run for 15 yards. So once we take that away from you, we want to see how you will react in these situations. It'll help us coach you, help you get to the next level, because all hope is that he's not going to have to play that many more downs for Texas this season. And so you'd like to get it in while you can to know what you're working on through that and going into the offseason. The hope is that Quinn Ewers comes back super healthy, even if it is, whether it's Mississippi State or whether it's Oklahoma, he comes back and doesn't leave the field again for the rest of the season. That's the hope. Now that's not the most likely. I'm not going to win on that one, but at the same part, I think that's you got an opportunity with Arch to see what it was. I don't know anybody who's covered this team or anybody who's expecting Arch to be perfect as a freshman. You just don't see it. And what I had a plenty of conversation on Sunday where people were kind of, a little bit down on it, whatever else, and just understand Arch Manning right now with that performance would be a starting quarterback on at least 95% of teams in college football. Go watch quarterback play in college football, overall, and tell me that Arch Manning did not look much better than most of these other quarterbacks.
Yep. They're like some top, if you go look at the top 25, there's probably like 6-7 teams in the top 25. He probably could play.
I mean, he would have started on Oklahoma State or Utah. I know Cam Rising there, but Cam Rising was hurt, so he didn't play. So he would have played. He would have started on both those teams this week.
Hell, man, Oklahoma right now.
Oh yeah, he definitely started for Oklahoma.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of teams that then they take Arch Manning all day, every day, and twice on Sunday, and I mean that's how Texas is in the quarterback utopia. We're kind of quarterback heaven, if you will, because that's the future for Texas football. So I am. Like I said, I was pleased with it, and I think ultimately a lot of coachable, teachable moments for him. But for overall, I thought it looked really good. But it's a freshman. That's what you always got to keep in mind. It looked good for a freshman, I should say. It looked good for a freshman playing the quarterback position with his first start. All right, when we come back, we'll get into some more Texas football conversation. We'll hear from Sark. This time we'll talk about the defense. Haven't talked about the defense yet. Is it time to start using the word elite with this Texas defense? They're certainly making the case for it. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some more Texas football conversation. I don't think we're talking enough about the Texas defense, and I understand why. I mean, your starting quarterback goes down. That's going to dominate conversation, especially when the backup is a Manning. I get it. So we talked a lot about Hurts Manning, and we've talked a lot about the Texas offense and the receiving core. We talked about Jaden Blue getting 25 rushes in a game and 7 targets, and him being a catalyst for this offense. But I'll admit, the defense, man, they have so far this season. They have played at an elite level. They have not been tested, really. The Michigan game was kind of a test, but Michigan's so one-dimensional, so vertically challenged. I mean, they beat USC, but they threw for 30, 40 yards against USC and beat them. You should be ashamed of yourself, USC, for letting a team that one-dimensional beat you like that. That's crazy.
Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, Lincoln, come on. And the defense is better, though. I'll give them credit. The defense is better, but Texas hadn't been tested because they haven't really seen a prolific offense or an elite quarterback yet. It'll happen with Georgia and Carson Beck, but right now they've passed every test. Secondary looks amazing. I mean, I'll give you some of the stats here in just a second after we hear from Sark, but Sark was asked about the maturation of this defense. I mean, you've allowed 22 points in 4 games. I don't give a damn what competition level you're playing up against. That's really, really impressive. You got 7 interceptions on the season. I believe that's leading all SEC teams. You guys many interceptions as you got sacks. You got 7 sacks by 4 different players. But this defense looks different, and they are playing right now as a unit, and one of the best units in the country. So Sark was asked about, what's different, what's some of the big factors in the evolution, kind of the reinvention of this Texas defense. Here's Sark on the maturation of his defense.
Well, I just think it's been a journey from year one, from where we were and to where we've evolved ourselves to. I'm proud of those guys because when we weren't playing great defense, maybe in year one, we were still having to recruit some of these guys that are on our, that decided to come play defense for us, and so I think they saw the vision of who we wanted to be defensively, and then they've taken it and they've ran with it, and they're, although we lost some really good players off of last year's defense, this group has stepped up and have taken that standard and elevated it to a whole nother level. I mean, we're still playing great run defense, but our pass defense has been so much more improved. And I think that comes with experience that we have in the back end, confidence that we're playing with in the back end. And then, but tying it all together and getting some guys back, you get a Jalen Gilbo back. Now you can play a Jahdae Barron at corner. You get a whole nother year of experience in a Manny Muhammad. You bring in an Andrew Makuba, who's got a ton of experience for Clemson to go along with Michael Taft. And we really didn't have Jelani and Derek Williams tonight, but that group is pretty experienced. They've played a lot of football, and I think they're really working well together. They communicate on a high level, but that only is a byproduct because of what we're doing up front. And that front four is playing well, and our backers, I think, are playing at a high level right now.
Yeah, that's Coach Sark talking about his defense, and yeah, he's giving a lot of compliments, very complimentary of that secondary, because I think the biggest surprise of this season so far has been the play of the secondary. It's been amazing. Jahdae Barron right now is graded by Pro Football Focus as the highest graded DB in the SEC. Got a 90.2 grade for Jahdae Barron. High, and by the way, Michael Taft, he is 4th highest graded DB after 4 weeks in the SEC at 83.8 grade for Michael Taft. So that secondary is just playing at a really, really high level. But also Anthony Hill. Anthony Hill might have had his best performance so far of this season. Speaking of Pro Football Focus, they had him as the highest graded linebacker in the country in week 4 with a 90.7 grade going into the ULM week and ULM game, I should say. He was top 5 highest graded linebackers in the Power 4. But this week, they got him as the highest graded linebacker after getting an interception and a sack versus ULM. Here's Sark talking about the impact of Anthony Hill.
No, Anthony's had a really good year for us. I think the defense, in my opinion, is starting to take on a little bit of his persona to some degree. Ant is a tough, violent, hard playing, smart football player. And I think that's how we play, and that has permeated amongst the defense. And it's not just him. We've got a lot of guys that way. But he plays really well against the run. He every time it feel like there's a screen or something, he's always one of the guys that's the first one there. He recognizes those things. He gets his hands on the ball. We see it all the time in practice. But for him to get the interception, and I was thinking to myself, he looked like a pretty good tailback when he was running. But he's just a really good player. But for a younger player, he's got leadership qualities about him. I mean, that's the reason tonight he was one of the captains. Because I just think he's asserted himself in that role, and the guys respond to him. But and the beauty of it too, I'll say this: I know the questions about Anthony. Leonga Lafau is a really good player too, and so we don't have to overexert Anthony because Leonga goes in the game and he makes a lot of plays. Obviously, had a great play on the safety tonight.
Yeah, he's right about Leonga Lafau. I mean, I know Patrick got the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Who's the MVP of the game? Leonga Lafau would be one of the options that you could vote for. I mean, he had a monster game. 7 tackles, led the team. He had 2 tackles for loss. That led the team. He had 4 run stops and 3 run stuffs. That was the lead. He led SEC linebackers in that regard. Had a sack, had a safety that he forced, and 5 defensive stops overall. That was his breakout game. And I think more and more he's starting to show that in the tackle, basically in the tackle box, if you will, from tackle to tackle, he can be a downhill run stuffing linebacker for you, because he's meeting guys at the line of scrimmage in the hole and like forcing them back. And like once he's making contact, he's driving guys into the backfield. So I think Leonga Lafau right now is earning himself a lot more playing time. Coach is right about that. Speaking of those linebackers playing so well, it's helping your run defense. That was one of the questions too, right? We know pass defense was the biggest issue Texas had last season. That has improved exponentially. You're one of the best best defenses period in the country because of the improvements you made in the secondary. But that was also concerned with losing Tavondre Sweat, losing Byron Murphy. And how is Texas going to be against the run? And you proved versus Michigan, a power running team, that you can go on the road and you can stonewall the running game for one of the obviously a team that's known for running game. The power run game is their identity. Here's Sark talking about what they're doing on defense in relation to stopping the run.
Yeah, no, I think it's been it's like Jermaine Lele has been a great addition for us. Bill Norton has been a nice addition for us. We're rotating a lot of those guys, and you saw Tia Savea there late. And like I said, and then the addition of Alex January, I mean, he's starting to come along. But I think a lot of that's the interior guys. I think our edge guys are playing really good football right now. Sorrell and Burke, Trey Moore and Colin and Colton Vosick has stepped his game up to another level. So we've got great depth on that front. And I think that alleviates a lot of the pressure off of those backers on the inside with Anthony and whether it's Benda or Mo Blackwell or Leonga, those guys that are in there. Ty Anthony Smith played a lot tonight because that front is doing a really nice job for us. So, hey, we believe in stopping the run. It's kind of a prerequisite around here to play defense that way. And so we've done a really good job of it. We had to do it against a really good rushing team on the road a few weeks back, and they were able to do it then. And I think they've just kind of continued it.
All right. That's Sark talking about the run defense, which has been, I'll admit, the pass defense and the interior run defense we thought would be an issue, but neither one of those things has been an issue. As a matter of fact, they've been strengths for that Texas defense so far. Something else that's been a strength is the wide receiving core. It is no doubt it's loaded. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden. I'm starting to think there is now separation though between like the circle of trust is still going to be, I think, 5 and 6 deep. Matter of fact, you saw Silas Bowden introduced pretty much into the circle of trust the last 2 weeks to add him. And then DeAndre Moore's got the injury. So he's got a hip pointer injury. So, 5 to 6 guys legitimately are rotating at wide receiver, but you're starting to see certain guys ascend into certain roles like Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond. And I think my top 3 are Bond, Golden, and Wingo. I think those are my top 3. I think those are your best 3 wide receivers. And Ryan Wingo, the reason that is remarkable is because he's a true freshman, but he ain't playing like a true freshman. He had 4 targets in this game. He had 2 receptions, and then had the touchdown, the 17-yard touchdown too. So now I think he's averaging some ridiculous number, like over 26 yards per reception. But here's start talking about Ryan Wingo, who I think is in your top 3 wide receivers right now among this group, and what his impact has been so far.
Yeah, he's always had big playability. We saw that in the spring game. He's always been a guy that could create the explosive plays. I think the biggest improvement he's making is the details in the offense, to where he's earning our trust to do the other things, whether it's blocking or formations or motions or intermediate routes. And, tonight was a great example in that the dig route he catches early in the ball game. And so his game is forever evolving, and it's forever evolving because he's a really humble guy who wants to be coached and wants to work at his craft. And so he doesn't at all feel like he's a finished product or that he's arrived. He's like, what do I need to do today to try to get better? And that's truly his attitude and his mentality. And I think that's why we're seeing so much growth in him right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. I think the numbers are now, he's got 9 receptions on 11 targets. He's got the 1 rush of 55 yards. So 12 opportunities if you include touches and targets, rushes and targets. He's averaging 24 yards per opportunity, basically. Offensive opportunity, whether it's a touch or a target. He's having 29 yards per touch and 26 yards per catch. But 24 yards anytime you just involve him in the offense, basically. It's a pretty damn good number. 2 touchdowns already.
Yeah.
You got to play that dude a little bit more. I mean, I know he is playing more, by the way. Coaches are playing him more, but I think by the end of the year, he's in your top 3 right now. There's a good chance he ends up being, like your number 1 by the end of the year. Like at this accelerated rate of development, he could end up being at least in your top 2 receivers, because he's already through 4 games. He's already I think he's your top 3.
I'd say depending on the game, he could be the top guy in any game by the end of the season.
Yeah. He could be the biggest matchup problem for opposing teams.
Yeah.
Like, oh, damn.
And that's the thing
I'm really worried about.
If it means they're going to start doubling Wingo, so Bond gets more wide open, then Bond will still be the guy, but it's because Wingo's pulling doubles.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know which one I double. I think I double. Oh, that's tough.
That's what I'm saying. By the end of the season, we don't know.
That's a tough situation for a defensive coordinator to be in. All right, there you go. That's Sark talking about the Longhorns and their performance versus ULM. We come back. We got off the record on this side. Wacky stories from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and we'll come back and we'll dive into it right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. The Rodcast. Time to get into a little off the record here where we got some time. All right, so Mac Brown had a really tough weekend. And apparently one of his quotes after the game, because they lost in embarrassing fashion. I'll just say it straight up, because they allowed 70 points. they scored 50, I believe. I think they allowed 70 though.
Yeah, to James Madison.
To James Madison. That also must be said to contextualize it. Yes, to James Madison, who just became an FBS program, right? So they just stepped up to the FBS level and it beat Mac North Carolina Tar Heels 70-50. And apparently Mac told the team in the locker room that he would step away if they couldn't get things straightened out. If they don't get it straightened out, that he would retire and he'd step away. And I think people misconstrued that, and then it got out that he was retiring. Like people were like, "Oh man, they got beat so bad." Mac Brown decided he was going to retire. Not the case. Mac is not retiring. He says if they can't get it fixed, he's going to retire. And I think Gene Chizik is his DC, if I'm not mistaken. They giving up 70 points to James Madison. I don't even know how it all went down. There was turnovers, or they just shredded him through the air, or just ran all over him. I have no idea. I didn't really check it out, but yeah, they got to figure out something. You scored 50, so ain't nothing wrong with your offense. You're good. You score 50, you're good. They got to figure out some way to stop some damn body. Yeah. And by the way, Mac Brown he's turning 73. He turned 73. Excuse me. He turned 73 like last month. So when you're 70 something and team is almost scoring your age on your team, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah. North Carolina did have 2 interceptions and 3 fumbles lost.
Okay. There you go then. So that's what ultimately probably led to a lot of easy short fields. Yeah. So maybe it's not the defense that's that bad.
They allowed their quarterback for James Madison had 388 through the air and 5 touchdowns. He also ran for another 90 yards and had 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. So your pass defense is a problem. Man.
Pass defense and run defense, because they allowed the quarterback almost 100 yards rushing too. And then they allowed over 250 something yards rushing. So yeah, that defense just looked bad all around.
And that's James Madison. Yeah, there's going to be somebody else in the ACC licking their chops looking at Mac. So he says if he doesn't get it fixed, he's going to retire. People are going to hold him to it. So I hope they get it fixed and, they don't give up a lot of points. I haven't looked at who they play next week, but people are going to be tracking this now. And they're going to be asking Mac about it, unfortunately. If they give up a lot of points, that's good. Like, Mac, you did say you would retire if they didn't get it fixed. Are you still holding yourself to that promise? So I think he didn't want that to get out. I guarantee you, Mac didn't want that out.
No. I bet the donors who are counting his buyout right now are like, sir, you said you would buy out. You said you would retire.
Yeah, you said you would retire. You said you would step down if you couldn't get it fixed.
You said it was not going to cost us millions of dollars to get rid of you.
So Mac, tough times there for Mac at North Carolina. Usually I'd say that Mac would get it fixed. Like, I don't know the state of the program right now, though. I don't know. And at this point, 73, how much longer can you coach if you're 73?
How much longer can you recruit?
How much longer can you recruit? Can you go? Mac can't guarantee that he's going to be there anymore. Back in the day when moms and dads would ask, like, hey, are you going to be here to coach my son, his entire time? And for 4 years, and Mac would be like, you damn right I am. And he would make that promise to my mom when I was being recruited. And he meant it. And he was telling the truth. Now he literally can't make that promise. He is telling parents, like, I can't say that. I would basically I'd be lying to you. I can't say it. I'm 73. I can't say I'm going to be around. I don't even know. God willing, I have no idea if we're going to be here to coach your son. And that's tough to recruit at 73 years old like that. So I hope Mac gets it. I love Mac. Mac's a good dude and a great coach, but he may be at the end of his coaching tenure at the University of North Carolina. We shall see. All right, we come back. We got a Rangers report coming up in the 9:00 hour. We'll get back to NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We'll get into the flustercluck of a performance and the dumpster fire of a performance we saw from the Cowboys and from the Texans. We'll also get into Rod's rant of the day. That'll be a review of some of the predictions I made about how the offense would look under Arch Manning compared to Quinn Ewers. We'll dive into that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick plays jams intended to soothe the tortured soul of sports fans whose teams may have had a tough weekend. So that's the number one purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday, especially during football season. So Cowboys fans and Texas fans, we're talking to you. But to make the transition from the fun-filled, stress-free weekend to the very stressful and very hectic and busy work week, traffic and meetings and whatnot. Patrick wants to make sure you are not traumatized by that transition. So he makes it as smooth as possible for you. Thus the purpose of a Smooth Soul Monday. Also, he comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. So Patrick, let the folks know what the topic is for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day today. Who was the MVP for Texas against ULM right now? 74% says Jaden Blue, 14% Anthony Hill, 7% Arch Manning, and 6% Leona Lafau.
All right, yeah, it's Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue, like I said, nobody expected him to be someone who would have 25 rushes in a game and along with 7 targets versus ULM. Now, maybe the game was like, oh, that's Georgia. Okay, yeah, they needed to win that game. Oh, it was a rivalry game versus Oklahoma, or even an SEC game. If I told you that Jaden Blue is going to have 25 rushes and 7 targets in a game, you probably wouldn't guess ULM. So to me, that was Sark making a statement. That was, and I don't know, maybe it was an individual statement for Jaden Blue, as Patrick mentioned, for his NFL aspirations. Maybe it was a statement about the inside, run game and the power run game and inside zone, and telling teams, hey, well, we're going to run the inside zone. Maybe it was to give teams going into SEC play to now give them more to prepare for. The Texas isn't just a pass. They are a pass first team, but they're not a team that can just hurt you with the pass. And if they're determined to run the football, that's also something they can, forge as a part of their identity. So I'm not sure why it happened, but it did. And that's why he's your MVP, because he's the catalyst. And right now, I pointed out 19 targets on the season for Jaden Blue. He's missed a game, guys. Isaiah Bonds leading you in targets with 20. He's played every game. Isaiah Bonds missed a game and still has 1 target fewer than your leading target share receiver in Isaiah Bonds. I'm telling you, I don't know if, like I said, I went back and looked at Bijan. Bijan had 1 such game where he had 6 or more targets in 2021. He didn't have any game in 2022 where he had 6 targets or more. Jay Brooks had 2 such games last season where he had at least 6 targets or more. Jaden Blue played in 3 games and he's got at least 6 targets in every game. That's different. So right now he's the catalyst, but there's something offensively. I think there's a vision that Sark has for Jaden Blue. And with CJ Baxter going down, I don't think he was willing to abandon what his vision was for Jaden Blue. He's still going to execute his vision on top of giving Jaden Blue the workload that CJ Baxter was going to have too. I think that's what's going on. And good for him. If you're an NFL scout, you're looking at Jaden Blue saying, I love that guy in my offense because he can do everything. Run in between the tackles, he can run on the edges. He's got to do better with the hands. He had a couple of drops in the game, but he's got really good hands. So, and proving he can be a pass blocker as well. So this, it's a great opportunity for Jaden Blue to showcase his skills. All right, so there you go. Topic for Big Fat Poll today. Who's your MVP? We pretty much just discussed who it is. But we'll get to some more Texas football conversation when we get to Rod's Rant. We also got a Rangers report coming up, so we'll probably get to that next segment along with Rod's Rant. And here in this segment, we'll talk Cowboys and we'll talk Texans. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series with the Angels over the weekend, 3-1. Jose Altuve reached his 3rd career 2020 season, while Yordan Alvarez left Sunday's game early after injuring his knee while sliding into second base. The Astros now move on to a series with the Mariners and can clinch the division and a playoff berth with 1 win in the series. The Rangers dropped their series to the Mariners over the weekend, but played spoiler with a walk-off single by Marcus Semien in the bottom of the 9th to dampen Seattle's playoff hopes. The Rangers will take the day off before heading to Oakland for the final A's series in the Oakland Coliseum. In college football, the Texas Longhorns finished up non-conference play with a 51-3 win over Louisiana Monroe on Saturday. Arch Manning threw for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns in his starting debut, but also had 2 picks in the game, while Jaden Blue returned from injury to tally 124 rushing yards and 4 total TDs. Elsewhere, Michigan toppled USC 27-24 with a late scoring drive. Utah got a 22-19 win over Oklahoma State. Tennessee had no problem beating Oklahoma 25-15. And the biggest upset of the weekend, BYU took down number 13 Kansas State 38-9. After 4 weeks of action, Texas remains in the number 1 spot in the AP poll. And in the NFL, the Texans got embarrassed by the Vikings 34-7 with C.J. Stroud throwing 2 interceptions and Houston only racking up 38 rushing yards in the game. And the Cowboys tried to rally late with 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns, but still lose to the Ravens 28-25. Baltimore rushed for 274 yards in the game, with Derrick Henry having 3 total touchdowns. Tonight, the Jaguars face the Bills, and the Commanders take on the Bengals, and that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. All right, let's get to the very ugly UGLY performances we saw from the Cowboys and from the Texans. Let's start with, I guess we can start with the Cowboys. And I said this last week, bad matchup for the Cowboys considering the issues, the deficiencies that have been exposed that the Cowboys have on defense. And I think it starts with D tackle for the Cowboys. They got to figure out a way to either trade for another D tackle. I don't think they have a solution to their issues on the roster right now. But I think that's where it starts. I just don't think they have the mass. I don't think they have the playmaker, the force multiplier at the point of attack. And I was looking at a Pro Football Focus breakdown of the lowest graded interior D lineman in the 2024 season so far through 3 weeks. And the Giants have the lowest rated interior defensive lineman, DJ Davidson. But then after him, Mozzie Smith, 28.9, Jordan Phillips, 29.6, and then Linville Joseph, 31.4, all Cowboys, all 3 of those guys. You got your 3 D tackles are 3 of the lowest graded interior D linemen in all of the NFL. That's where your issues start if you're the Dallas Cowboys. And that's why, the Saints were able to just, maul you in the running game. And that's why Baltimore was able to do the exact same thing. Saints ran for 190 yards on the ground last week. The Baltimore Ravens ran for 274 yards against the Cowboys. That's the most rushing yards the Cowboys defense has given up since Mike Nolan was coaching defense in 2020 when Mike McCarthy first got there. And they allowed 294 yards to who? The Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, I know. The Shakespearean irony there. Remember what I told you, though, that the Ravens would pretty much come in and abandon or at least forsake their own identity just to attack the deficiency and the vulnerability of the Dallas Cowboys defense, which is their rush defense. Listen to this stat. Lamar Jackson, he averaged 3.2 air yards per attempt against the Cowboys. Lowest mark. All right, the lowest number in a game of his entire career, if you're looking at air yards per attempt. He only had 1 pass over 10 air yards, and that was a 13-yard touchdown to Rashad Bateman. They didn't need the passing game. That wasn't their intention going in. They knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to run on the Cowboys. And Derrick Henry, 25 rushes, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He forced 12 total missed tackles, which is also the second problem, the second big issue for the Cowboys in regards to their rush defense. Yes, they're really bad at the point of attack. Their D tackles are just subpar. I mean, they are 2, 3, 4, if you want to name them, how many you want to throw out there. They're the worst combination and core of run-stopping D tackles in all of the NFL. And then on top of that, once they do get past the first level of the defense and get to the second level, Cowboys aren't great at tackling at the second and third level. The Cowboys missed 17 tackles versus the Ravens. They had missed 15 in the previous 2 weeks combined. And they missed 17 of them. So if you can't stop the run initially at the point of attack and your D tackles can't penetrate and they can't win one-on-ones, because right now the Cowboys aren't even being double teamed at a really high rate. They can't even beat one-on-ones. It'd be different if teams were running duo and they were double teaming both D tackles and moving those guys back and resetting the line of scrimmage. They're not doing that. They're blocking the Cowboys D tackles one-on-one. Cowboys can't win against one-on-one blocking teams. And then when they do, of course, get past the first level, which is happening way too often, the Cowboys can't tackle at the second level. So I think the Cowboys need to go trade for a D tackle tomorrow, like right now. And I think ultimately scheme-wise and maybe even personnel-wise, Mike Zimmer's got to come up with some solutions, because Mike Zimmer's defense is just getting mauled in the first half of these games. He's making some adjustments in the second half, but the first half, the last 2 weeks, they've allowed 582 yards, 56 points, and 28 first downs in the first half of the last 2 games. That is a recipe for close to being a 500 team. And I know the Cowboys got a lot of talent. They got a ton of it. But this is a recipe, a down, I would say, subpar down running game, and no identity in the running game for them offensively. And then having one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL on defense. I think that's a recipe for the Cowboys to be hovering around, like I said, 9 wins if they don't fix it quickly. So we shall see. Here's what Dak Prescott had to say about. He said, we got to be more professional. Michael Parsons said, we just got people trying to be Superman out there. DeMarcus Lawrence says, once we get out of playing Little League football, we'll be all right. They did make a comeback. They mounted a comeback, and they showed a lot of testicular fortitude coming back the way they did to make it a fourth quarter game and to force the Ravens to be clutch and hold on to that win. So you can't take that away from the Cowboys. I'll give them credit for it, but that still doesn't solve your ultimate problem. Your 2 biggest glaring issues and deficiencies are your rush defense and your running offense. Your rushing offense and rushing defense are 2 of the worst in the NFL right now. If you don't fix them soon, you get into division play and you're gonna drop a couple in the division just because of that reason alone. Philly's gonna be able to take advantage of it. I don't know if the Giants can. Philly can. Maybe Washington can. But that's not your goal if you're the Cowboys. You're thinking about beating the 49ers and beating, the Green Bay Packers, beating the best teams in the NFC right now. And the Philadelphia Eagles will be in that category too. And, beating the Detroit Lions. And right now, you're not even close. I wouldn't pick the Cowboys in any of those games or any of those teams I just mentioned. I didn't pick them in this game. I picked the Ravens. I was like, oh, yeah, the Ravens, desperate 0-2 with their downhill running game, or at least the remnants of it with a Derrick Henry from what he did the Titans. And back when Lamar Jackson won his first MVP, I said bad matchup for the Cowboys. I was right. I was almost wrong because the Cowboys almost came back and won it. But this is a bad matchup for the Cowboys. And I'll be saying that every week against any team that's willing to commit to the run against the Cowboys, because that's how you beat them.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Thursday night's going to be an interesting game because the Giants don't really have a run game. It's not terrible. Singletary's okay, but they they don't really have a pass game. They don't have much of an offense. So,
anything.
So, I mean, you figure if this is a team that Daniel Jones can run the ball a little bit, you figured they're just going to, why would you not use the blueprint? Why would you not say until they stop it, let's go in on a short week and just run the ball downhill?
Yep.
And just try and beat them up. And if we can slow the game down and get on it, then all we have to do is worry about stopping their passing game because they don't have a run game either. So we have to do, if we know we can run on them and we know they can't run, then all we have to figure out is how to stop the pass.
I agree. And I would just take away CD. I'd be like, oh yeah, somebody else got to beat us. I ain't gonna let CD beat us.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you. If you're the Giants, whoever plays the Cowboys, you don't necessarily need to come up with a game plan. You just need to figure out how to exploit their rush defense until they fix it. And if they don't trade for a D tackle, and as you mentioned, they did trade for Jonathan Hankins a couple of years ago. So you got to give them credit for that. So they had a problem a couple of years ago, and they brought in a player who was a specialist as a run stuffer. That is exactly what they need right now. They need a specialist as a run stuffer, and they need to be willing to give up draft capital to do it. They do.
I'll tell you, the reality is they also need to go out and they need to be willing to make salaries work to get a guy there who may cost a little bit more, and that's why someone's willing to get rid of him.
That's true too. Yeah, you're right. Pay somebody that another team is unwilling to pay. Who's that's their specialty.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can do some research around the league, but there are teams who are probably overpaying for a run stuffer right now and don't want to pay them.
Yeah, especially if they're a 1-win team or a no-win team right now. Go ahead.
Yep.
Take this guy off our books. Yeah. We're not going to keep him later than this anyway. And I mean, that's kind of what Hankins was when they got him.
It was. Yep. And they kept him for 2 years. Remember, they re-signed him. Yeah. It was such a good acquisition for him.
So they gave us 6 for him. Like, they didn't have to give up a ton for him. So you just have to find that deal again. You're on a short week this week, so you're probably not gonna. I mean, I'd start those conversations, but if you could make the trade and basically have it ready, so even if you maybe get them where they don't play this week, but you get them installed in the system on a Friday or Saturday, like you can get them installed a little bit longer, and you have a long week next week. That's a great time to put somebody new into there to work on some things after that Giants game. So I think this is the now you got to pull the trigger, because again, you're going up against the Steelers, who, man, they keep winning, and Arthur Smith and Mike Thomas, they're gonna run the football on you. And again, when you say who's gonna be the more physical team, is it gonna be the Steelers or is it gonna be the Cowboys? Who's gonna be the more physical team? Dan Campbell's Lions or the Cowboys?
Great point. Yep. 49ers or the Cowboys?
49ers or the Cowboys? Eagles or the Cowboys?
Yep. You're about to face some teams that like fight. They like to punch you in the mouth. I am with you. I don't know. They got to make this move. I'm with you within the next 2 weeks. You're right. Mate, this is probably too soon to do it. You got a short week. I think this week you're looking at those potential candidates.
Yeah.
And making calls. And then I think by next week, like you said, you get that long week, you need to make a move. You need to bring in some help. And I'll give him credit, not for calling great defense the last couple of weeks, but he said during the offseason, remember, we played the audio, he said, I need D tackles. He said, I need them. And that's when they went out and got Leonard Joseph and Jordan Phillips. Not them kind of D tackles. He needs real playmakers, impactful playmakers who can penetrate, make plays in the backfield, who can take up a gap in the half. And I think that's what he was thinking with these guys, because Leonard Joseph and Jordan Phillips were huge. So he was thinking, I just need 2 big guys who can take up blockers and take up space, gap eaters, and that's enough. And turns out it's not, because they're not really gap eaters, because they can be moved. You're going to watch them. They're being moved backwards.
They're not gap eaters because they get pushed over, and it's 2 offensive linemen that are pushing them out of the play and opening this gigantic hole up the middle. So
if they just stayed there at the point of attack and couldn't be moved and never made a play, just stayed there, honestly, the defense would be 10 times better. The rush defense would be.
Yeah.
But you're right. They basically moved them backwards, and essentially they're making a bigger hole.
Yeah.
Than there normally would be if they just stayed there and force the running back to pick a hole. That hole is, honestly, they're huge. These gaps that the Cowboys are their run fits are just bad right now. They're terrible. So we'll see. If Mike Zimmer, it's on everybody though. Zimmer's got to fix the scheme. The front office got to bring in some more personnel, trade for a guy, and the players got to be better. They just got to be better.
Yeah.
They got to have more pride than this. You can't have more pride than that, man. You're an NFL player. I'm sorry. You can't give up 190 yards rushing one week and then 274 the next week. What? Come on.
You can't be week 3 of the season and everyone's like, well, I don't know if they win another game because they can't stop the run that bad. Like you can't. Week 3, they figured this out on you.
Yeah. You got. I mean, it did. It happened fast, and now the blueprint's already out.
Yeah.
So you gotta counter if you're the Cowboys. You got to do it quickly. All right. So that's the Cowboys. They got a lot of issues, but
we also did mention. I know they were behind, so they couldn't run the football. But man, those numbers in the running game were bad for them too. And I mean, they were bad for the Texans. I'm not throwing stones, but Rico Dottle 8 carries for 32 yards. Dak Prescott 2 carries 7 yards. Zeke 3 carries 6 yards. Deuce Vaughn 2 carries 5 yards. Devontae Turpin 1 carry 1 yard. The longest run of the game for them was 6 yards.
I mean, what did Jerry say before this game? That he likes their backfield?
I think we're good. I like our depth.
Oh, man. I got it. We all saw this coming. This was this was so obvious to predict. Anybody could have predicted this. And anybody looking at the Cowboys could be like, that running game is going to be bad.
It's going to be bad. Yeah. And you get in a game like this, you're going to have to throw the ball a lot but that's the problem is you're going up against the Ravens defense who is completely set back trying to make sure you don't get any big plays and don't get any big receptions because you're down by 20 something points. You're going to be throwing the ball and you still can't get 10 yards on a carry. You still can't sneak one up there and sneak one out and get Rico Dowdle for 10 yards or get Zeke for 10, 15 yards on a play and reset the chains and go for it. You can't even do that. You have to have that. And it's just, I agree. You've got to fix the run defense first because you at least have a passing offense.
You can move the ball.
You can still move the ball. There's still things there. So you got to fix that defense first. But once you fix that, hey, you got to start looking on the other side too. Because you got to play complementary football and not leave your defense out there because you're going to get one defensive tackle is what you're going to bring in. And that dude's going to get tired when you keep punting the football.
I'm with you. I think, I agree with you. I say you fix D tackle first and then go get your running back. Go trade for your running back. I think if you do that and the Cowboys do it, I think they actually look for impact players, not just a body at that position. They trade for impact players at D tackle and at running back. I think the Cowboys will be all right. I think they'll be fine because schematically, Zimmer will make some adjustments. Personnel-wise, they'll improve. The players will get better in the scheme. But if you're the Cowboys, you got to act quickly. So next 2 or 3 weeks is going to be crucial for the Cowboys because if they don't fix their problem, they're about to go on a losing streak. They're going to go on a losing streak.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
About a 3-game losing streak is going to happen for the Cowboys. Or they're going to lose like 3 out of 4 or something like that.
Yeah, you could real easily end up being 2-5.
Yes. No, I agree with you. But based on the opponents that you just brought up in their schedule, I could see that if they don't fix this because this is, come on, man. You gave up almost 500 rushing yards or something like that in 2 weeks. That's insane. That's unacceptable. Sorry, that the Cowboys they got to figure that out. They need to do it fast. All right, let's get to the Texans because speaking of issues and things they have to fix, the Texans, and this is something else we saw coming because I kept talking about it all last week that the Texans had to stay out of 3rd and long situations versus the Minnesota Vikings and Brian Flores' defense. We talked about that against the 49ers, but Minnesota was able to shut down the 49ers on 3rd down is because they were oftentimes in 3rd and medium or 3rd and long, and he held them to 2 of 10 on 3rd down, 1 of 3 on 4th down, and really that's where Brian Flores' defenses have shined this season is in situational with situational awareness and on critical downs, mostly money downs, 3rd and 4th down. And so with the Texans who have struggled on 1st down and who have been a team that's been prone to 3rd and longs way too often, I thought that would be a lose-lose scenario for the Texans. I mean, that was going to be, to me, the biggest factor in whether the Texans going to have success on the road versus Minnesota. They did not. They did not have much success in trying to get themselves in manageable 3rd downs. They had 14 3rd downs. They were 4 of 14 on 3rd down, so not great on 3rd down, but most of those were 3rd and longs. I would say out of their 14 3rd downs, I would say easily 11 of them were 3rd and longs. Easily out of the 14. They went 3rd and long all game long. And whether it was because, they didn't have success on 1st down or because, once again, something that's come back to haunt DeMeco. And I love DeMeco Ryans. I do. I think he's great. I think he's going to be fantastic for the Texans. But he does have an undisciplined football team. They were undisciplined last year, but rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, everybody gets you having some issues with guys being disciplined, guys, losing focus. They were the most penalized team in the NFL on the road last year. And what they have, Patrick, in this game, 11 penalties.
11 penalties for
and
80
most of those
something yards.
88 yards.
And they were
most of those on the O-line.
And most of those in the first half, 3 quarters. Yep. Too. So it wasn't even late penalties when you were kind of out of it. These were important penalties at an important time in the game.
And this is what led to I want to say maybe 4 or 5 of your 3rd and longs were as a direct result of a offensive line pre-snap penalty of some kind.
Yeah, and I mean, it was you throw in all of that, and the positive for the Texans is on some of this stuff, the run game, when you get Joe Mixon back, that improves the run game a little bit more. Hopefully Dameon Pierce can give in there and spell, but he's been hurt too, so you lose two of your guys, that's going to definitely hurt your run game some. So that's not as big of a worry. It is still a worry that Bobby Slowick needs to figure out ways to get yardage on first down to not get you in those third and long situations. And not get you into where your offensive line is apparently the most undisciplined and strung out and just worried. So they're jumping over and over again. You have to figure that out. But at the end of the day, D'Amico Ryans has to change something in his offense. He has to go in to have a come to Jesus meeting with the coaches and be like, hey, we can't all be the good guy.
Yep.
Some of us are going to have to be some jerks around this room right now. And we're going to pick and choose who it's going to be, but
it can't be CJ Stroud because he's too young to be the a-hole. He just got there.
Yeah. And
he could do it now, maybe, but you're right. He's a little young for that role yet right now.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, but some of these coaches, you just go, man, not everybody's going to be their friend right now. And they know they're screwing up, but you have to get on these guys because they've been undisciplined last year. As we can say rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, they were also insanely injured. So we kind of gave them a pass for it a lot. That O-line would get a ton of penalties, but those guys weren't playing a lot of games. And like Laramie Tunsil was a guy who was penalized a ton and then started to turn it around the last couple of seasons. And this start of this season looks like this may be his worst one yet.
It is. He's got 10 penalties through 3 weeks.
And part of that is that part of that's the illegal procedure, which is he's getting false starts, but then you rack up 4 easy penalties in a couple games on illegal procedures for lining up too far back. But that's just discipline. It's just every play making sure you're doing everything right. So, and when you talk about CJ Stroud, you have to get on CJ Stroud more too. CJ, you need to make sure that you are communicating with this offensive line. You and this offensive line do not seem to be on the same page.
Nope.
So as a young quarterback, you want to run this team. You want us to hand over everything to you. You want the keys. Get the O-line to work. Like you need to. I'm not, but it's partly your communication because whatever it is of how you're play calling or whatever your snaps or if you're trying to hard count something and get the defense to jump, it's not working and it's costing you yardage. So across the board, everyone's going to have to take some responsibility in it. And everyone's going to have to work for the change. The difference between the Cowboys and the Texans, they have the personnel on the roster right now, and it's just mental mistakes.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
But they're major, major mental mistakes that make you feel like this Texans team is a year behind where we jumped them ahead, 2-3 years in the schedule, and you just have to put the brakes on a little bit and push them back a year and say this is, you're going to start to figure out some of these pieces as you move forward. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but they're going to keep costing you games. And in a game like this, it was, the Vikings are playing well. They're Brian Flores right now. That defense is just playing really dominant. The problem is going to be when you play some of these other teams that you should be beating and you're going to lose a game by a touchdown or a field goal. Like we talked about the first 2 weeks, your first 2 wins should have been double-digit wins, and neither one was. Because of those penalties, because of the mental errors, you're going to lose 1 or 2 of those games, and it's going to cost you home field in the playoffs. It's going to cost you, possibly win a division. Like it can cost you major things down the line, and that's what you don't want to get to.
Yep. 3 of the first 6 Texans drives killed because of offensive line pre-snap penalties. As I mentioned, Laramie Tunsil got 10 of them in the first 3 weeks. Next closest O-lineman has 5. He is now, you're talking about, he's got 4 third down false starts.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's crazy. He's got multiple third down illegal formations. I mean, I think some of them have been actually wiped out, but still, it's a lot of undisciplined play happening on an offensive line. And I think that also leads to the issues in pass protection. To your point, it's obviously miscommunication. They're not communicating effectively, and that's led to pass protection issues. And that's why CJ Stroud was sacked, 5 times in that game? 5 times. He had 2 interceptions. And that, like I said, that Brian Flores defense, it's a lot for any quarterback, especially a young quarterback, to have to digest. But to me, the pass protection issues and the undisciplined play may be linked a little bit for the Texans because I think on the offensive line. And CJ's got to do better dealing with the blitz. I mean, they blitzed them with over 54% of the time in the first half. They settled down and blitzed him, I think, around 27% of the time in the second half. But he never really was able to figure out that Brian Flores pressure package. He struggled all game long to figure it out. So he's got to go back, and work on some things as well. Defensively, I think the defense actually for the Texans played good, except in critical moments. In third down and red zone.
Yep.
They allowed them to be, I think they were 7-14 on third down, Minnesota was.
And what does it come back to? Lacking discipline. Just missing routes, lack of communication in the secondary, letting guys get wide open. Because there was so many catches in that game that were no one's in 5-10 yards of the guy.
Yeah.
And you went, that's not bad. That's complete inept and busted coverage. That's a lack of discipline, and that's not communication.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not just they're better than you. You screwed up.
I agree. No, I'm with you on that. I feel like that too because it was in the red zone, right? That's where Sam Darnold, he had 4 touchdowns all in the red zone, 4 touchdowns in the red zone. And that's when usually the Texans kind of fell apart. So, and this is what I said about Minnesota. I said Minnesota is really buttoned up on critical downs in critical situations. They don't really win the game, like the entire, if you look at like the box score and you're looking at all the different metrics, they don't necessarily, overwhelm opponents and win in every area. They win in critical areas. Third down. That's how they beat the 49ers. Third down, turnovers, red zone. It's like they pick like these 3 or 4 critical areas, and that's where they beat you. And they beat the Texans in penalties, red zone, third down, boom, and turnovers, by the way. Those 4 areas. That's where they win games. And that's why they right now are one of the biggest surprises in the NFL is because they win turnover margin, third down, red zone, and they are a disciplined team compared to the Texans. Texans have more talent.
No, and I'll tell you, Brian Flores, we know he's got some issues, and the Tua thing came out, and he may not be a perfect man, but Brian Flores also coached there with Mike Tomlin a little bit, and Bill Belichick, similar guy. What did Mike Tomlin say? Can't tell you how the hot dog's made. You're not going to like it.
Yep.
And that's the thing with D'Amico Ryans. Man, you better figure out how that hot dog's made.
You're right. And I don't care. I don't need to like it. As long as it gets done. Yeah, you're right. Because this is the first time we've actually seen. I mean, we've seen it last year, but we assumed that was a rookie coach thing. Now you're not a rookie coach, and you have some of the same issues. Now I think it's fair to criticize D'Amico. Yeah. And whether you can get these penalties, whether you can get that remedied, and whether you can get some of the communication issues on defense remedied. And I'll give him credit. He said it was a bury the ball game, meaning it's that bad. We just buried the ball.
I'll also give him credit. He said penalties are on me. These are on me. Like he knows he's screwing up on that part. He's not. He's not blaming players. He's taking blame for it. So he understands all of it. The question is, does he have the solution?
Texans allowed 30 total individual pressures on 23 dropbacks. That's not good. O-line's a problem right now for the Texans. All right, let's come back. We'll get into Raj Rant. I'll talk about the predictions I made about the Texas offense, how it would look a little bit different under Arch as opposed to Quinn, and we'll get your Rangers report. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Low and Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I know we're short on time here, so I'll try to be quick in reviewing some of my predictions about how the offense would change with Arch as opposed to Quinn. One of the things I'll talk about what I got right and basically what I got wrong here in tracking it. What I got right basically about the deep balls, and I was more right than I even thought, because I said verticality would be infused into the offense a little bit more with Arch Manning, because of ADOT and air yard percentage and yards per attempt and yards per completion. All the metrics said Arch wants to throw the football downfield more. Did I know he was going to throw 10 passes of 20 yards or more down the field? No, did not know that. He completed 3 of those. So that was definitely something you saw more of. And Sark said that was also matchup specific, because they wanted to attack the safeties vertically for ULM. Also said you see less snaps or pre-snap motion. So you see a lower rate of pre-snap motions and shifts, just because that's a lot on a young quarterback. It's more of a burden, even though it is one of the top 3 most effective cheat codes in all of football, college or pro. And I have advocated for Sark to increase his average rate of pre-snap motion shifts. He's around 55%. I think he should be around 75 or 80% of it. That's where some of the best teams in offense in the NFL are: Kansas City, Detroit, the 49ers and Green Bay and Miami, you name it. So I was right about that. The pre-snap motion and shift rate under Quinn in that UTSA game, around 55%. That's basically what the average is. And when Arch came in the game, it dropped to around 45%. It was below 45% with Arch in the ULM game. That's not a surprise either, but you do lose one of your cheat codes, or at least you use some of the effectiveness of it because you don't use it as much. It's not as prevalent in the offense. So that was something that I was right about. Also said the early down pass rate would probably decrease in terms of the early game pass rate. With Arch, it was probably a little more balanced, around 53% early down pass rate. Early game is first half, early down is first and second down. When Quinn was the starting quarterback, you were hovering around 58%, 60%, and even close to 70% that UTSA game, where you had 9 straight plays of passes to start the game and then hand off the ball for the first time to the 10th play of the game. So with a third-year starting quarterback, Sark was more comfortable leading with the pass and letting the pass open up the run. With Arch, seems like he wants a little bit more balance, and that's something that I thought would be the case. I said RPOs, play action pass, and screen rates would remain relatively consistent from Quinn to Arch, and you're still around 60%, probably around 65% of RPO, play action pass, and screen rate within the offense. So that stayed relatively consistent. Here's where I was a little bit off. I thought they would move the pocket more with Arch. They did not move the pocket more. My theory is that Sark discouraged him from running because he likes to run a lot, as evidenced by the 67-yard touchdown run that he had versus UTSA, where it reached 20.7 miles per hour. But Sark knows I can't put him in harm's way, because then we're going to end up with Trey Owens as our starting quarterback if something happens to Arch. So to keep him out of harm's way and to discourage him from running, I won't even give him as many opportunities to see the green grass outside the pocket, because if he does, his instincts may take over and he decides, hey, I'm taking that green grass, I'm running. So I think they discouraged that, and discouraging that took some of the moving some of the pocket movement out of the offense. I also thought you would see more screen game, and we did not see more screen game, especially with the bubble screen success you had with Isaiah Bond in the UTSA game, the 50-yard score. I thought you'd see more bubble screens, more tunnel screens, more throwback screens, more tight end screens with Arch in there. And I think the reason that we haven't is because he doesn't feather the ball as well. He doesn't layer it as well on those short, quick throws in the screen game. The sleight of hand may be a bit difficult for him to master early on. So maybe that's why Sark, who has one of the best screen packages in all of football, decided, we're not going to run a lot of screens with Arch, because he doesn't throw the screens relatively well to lead to those yak opportunities. So he's not a yak quarterback. A lot of his yardage is air. He's an air yards quarterback. And Quinn is a yak quarterback, meaning Quinn gets you the ball on the run, great ball placement accurately, so that you can get yak yards, yak opportunities. And that's why he gets rid of the ball so quickly. Quinn's average time to throw 2.2 seconds. Arch's average time to throw is 2.5 seconds. So Arch is giving you a little bit more time to get down the field so that he can stretch it vertically with air yards. And Quinn wants to get you the ball right away. Hey, you can obviously go get the rest of that explosive play yardage, chunk yardage play with yak yards. So they're actually very different quarterbacks. And that's why I thought you would get some differences in the way Sark called the game. I thought you'd get more targets for Jonte Cook and Ryan Wingo, since those are second-team guys who have worked with Arch on the second team. He's developed with them in practice. And I thought, oh, man, those guys will probably have better chemistry, better continuity, better timing, better rhythm. And not really. I think Wingo had 4 targets, but not for Cook. Cook only had 2 targets. So I don't know if I was accurate on that prediction as well. So those are some of the things that I predicted. I think most of them I thought I hit the nail on the head, but there were some that were surprising. So we'll see if Arch gets a second start versus Mississippi State, how the offense continues to evolve under him as opposed to the offense under Quinn. All right, let's get to the Rangers report while we got a little time here.
The Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the intro there for our Rangers report. Okay. Shout out to the Rangers how about this? This is actually maybe serendipitous. They opened the 2024 season with a walk-off extra inning victory over the Cubs at the Gilf. That's how they opened the season. And to close the season, they had a walk-off win over the Mariners to close the season.
At the Gilf.
Pretty good. At the Gilf. Yeah, that's pretty good, right? I mean, how often does that happen? So, hey, hopefully you can be excited about that, Rangers fans. Yeah, obviously, and it was a win. The Texas came back from a 5-run deficit. How about that? Even better to have that walk-off comeback win for the Rangers. They basically, if you go look at the way the game went down, they had singles. Basically, they didn't score a lot early on. They only had 2 hits, both singles, through the first 5 innings of that contest. Then Texas put up a 4 spot in the 6th, thanks to a Wyatt Langford home run. Then Tavares tied it with a solo homer in the 7th before they scored the game-winning run in the 9th. So congrats to them. It's a great way to end the season. Nice positive mojo. Oh, speaking of mojo, I don't know if this is good or bad, but Max Scherzer is on the IR now. His season's officially over. He's going to be a free agent.
Yeah, he's probably done with the Rangers.
Season,
right?
Yeah, so he's gone. He's not resigning.
Yeah, Jacob deGrom will be a guy coming back most likely. That brings you that other pitcher. Scherzer was brought in because of the deGrom injury. So it seems like he's getting there. He helped him get a World Series, but it seems like his time will be over. I will bring up another point too that I've seen. With Wyatt Langford gets that 3-run RBI, he's still, with a couple games to go, could work his way up in that total RBI leader for the Rangers. He probably won't take over Garcia, but he could pass Seager and Simeon, having a really good season, 69 RBI so far for the rookie. So a really good season and a bright future for Wyatt Langford.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. All right, so there you go. That's a Rangers report. Thank you to our friends at Texas Truck and Trailer.
The Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer, your premier truck accessory dealer.
All right, we'll come back and we'll play Who Said That on the other side. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify or recall who said that. We'll play that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a smooth Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick plays jams intended to soothe the tortured soul of sports fans who may have had a tough weekend because of their teams lacking, if you will. That was the case for Cowboys fans and Texans fans. So we appreciate Patrick on a smooth Monday. Also, he comes up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. You can go check that out. That is already posted on the Horns X account at the Horn ATX. He wants to know simply who was the MVP for Texas against ULM, and right now 72% of you who voted in this poll said Jaden Blue is the MVP of the Texas ULM game. All right, let's get to who said that. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that.
I actually reached out, to the Manning operation to get their take on the entire situation, because the reality is, against this Louisiana Monroe team, if Arch Manning throws for 5 touchdowns and runs 20 miles an hour plus again today, the fastest Manning in history, there's going to be calls for him to get on the field. The Manning family said, though, no. They are old school. You never lose a job because of an injury. Arch Manning wants to be in the program for 4 years. He wants to develop. There's no rush to get to the NFL. He loves Quinn Ewers, and they know that's going to be a talking point, but they've already tried to kind of settle that before it even gets started.
He wants to be in a program for 4 years. Pat McAfee, who said he talked to some insiders, some people that are close to the Manning family, and that Arch Manning wants to be here for 4 years. Well, this is year number 2.
Yeah, I mean, they all do work for the ESPN family in some way or another. So, I mean, he could reach out to Peyton and Eli, and
it's fascinating. That's awesome. I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, it's amazing. But that would be remarkable if he decides to say 2 more. That means you get 25 and you get 26 with Arch Manning. And if that's the case, then that's a hell of a coup for Steve Sarkisian to get a Manning that ended up wanting to stay that long, and you got Quinn, who stayed longer than everybody thought he would stay too.
I'll tell you this: he's gonna stay 5 if the Panthers keep sucking. He don't want to go there.
He's going to pull an Eli, like, I ain't going there, man. I ain't
going to Carolina. You crazy?
Yeah. No, I agree though. I think if Carolina was picking up one, he'd be like, nope, not happening.
No, I'm coming back to Texas, y'all.
Seriously. Who knows though? I will say they look good recently.
Andy Dalton looked better.
Hey, Andy Dalton looked better. So Dave Canales like, hey, it ain't my system. My system works, even with Andy Dalton. All right. Thanks, Patrick, for everything you do. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. Remember that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.